The world outside has gone quiet, settled into the deep, dark stillness of the night. Perhaps there is moonlight, casting long shadows across the floor. But inside you, a different kind of world is still awake, humming with a restless energy. The day is over, but the mind has not yet received the message. It replays conversations, worries about tomorrow, and sifts through the regrets of yesterday. Perhaps you find yourself bathed in the cool blue light of a screen, scrolling through an endless feed of lives that are not yours, a silent attempt to quiet the noise within by adding more from without. There is a weariness in your bones, a longing for rest, but sleep feels 1,000 miles away. You are caught in the space between, a place of profound and lonely exhaustion. If this feeling is familiar to you, know that you are not broken, and you are not alone. This is not a sign of personal failure. It is the signature of our modern lives, a collective ache born from constant pressure, endless information, and a world that asks us to be everything to everyone while forgetting to be anything to ourselves. We carry the unhealed wounds, the unspoken griefs, the quiet anxieties, and they accumulate within us like dust in a long, neglected room. In the timeless language of Buddhist wisdom, this accumulation has a name. It can be called emotional karma. It is not a cosmic judgment or a punishment for past deeds, but something far more intimate, far more tangible. It is the pattern of our pain, the unconscious habit of the heart to react in the same old ways, tripping on the same emotional stones, time and time again. It is the subtle, yet powerful, momentum of past suffering that continues to shape our present reality. But tonight, this night, can be different. Tonight, we can choose to stop running, to stop scrolling, to stop distracting. Instead, we can extend an invitation to turn inward, to be still, and to listen. The next 3 hours are a gift you are giving to yourself. This is not another task to be completed or a goal to be achieved. It is a sanctuary in time, a sacred pause. We will journey together using the profound and practical wisdom of the Buddhist path, not as a religion to be adopted, but as a gentle and powerful set of tools for observing, for understanding, and for healing. We will not fight the darkness, but rather, we will bring a small lamp of awareness to it, and in that gentle light, we will learn to untangle the knots of our own heart and rediscover the profound, unshakable peace that is, and has always been, your truest nature. Let us begin. Before we journey deeper, we must first create our sanctuary. This is the first, most crucial step. A journey inward requires a space that feels safe, a place where the outer world can finally fall away, leaving you with the quiet truth of your own presence. Look around you, at the room you are in. For these next few hours, this will be your temple, your monastery, your sacred grove. It does not need to be grand or ornate. Its sacredness will not come from any external object, but from the quality of attention you bring to it. If you can, dim the lights, leaving just enough to create a soft, gentle glow. A single candle, a small lamp in the corner, is more than enough. This is a simple act, but a powerful one. It is a signal to your body and to your mind that the bright, demanding world of doing is being set aside, and the soft, receptive world of being is being welcomed. Close the door, not to shut the world out in anger or fear, but to lovingly create a boundary, a container for your practice. Let this simple click of the latch be a sound of commitment to yourself. You are choosing to be here fully. If there are sounds from outside, a distant siren, the hum of the house, let them be. They are part of the tapestry of this moment. We are not seeking an artificial silence, but a profound peace that can hold all sounds within it. Consider this space your island. All day, you have been navigating the vast, often turbulent ocean of your life, an ocean of tasks, responsibilities, interactions, and expectations. Now, you have washed ashore on this small, quiet island. Here, you do not need to navigate. You do not need to steer or strive. You only need to rest. Let go of the urge to make this space perfect. You do not need special cushions or expensive incense unless they genuinely bring you a sense of peace. The only thing required is your intention to be still. This corner of a room, this chair, this spot on the floor becomes consecrated ground the moment you decide it is so. You are claiming this time and this space, not as an escape, but as a homecoming. Now, let us perform a simple ritual to mark the threshold between your day and this sacred pause. The mind understands ritual. It understands symbols. We will offer it a clear sign that a shift is occurring. Take a moment to stand, and feel your feet firmly on the floor. Feel the support of the earth beneath you. Now, take one slow, deliberate breath in, and as you breathe out, release the weight of the day you have just lived. Let it all go, the conversations, the frustrations, the successes, the failures. Let it fall away from you like a heavy coat you are shrugging off. Take a second. Even slower breath in, and as you breathe out, release the planning for tomorrow. Let go of the lists, the worries, the anticipation. Let the future dissolve, for it is not yet real. It is a ghost, and you are here, now. Finally, take a third, deep, and gentle breath. As you exhale this time, simply arrive. Arrive in your body, in this room, in this present moment. There is nowhere else you need to be. Now, with this sense of arrival, slowly and mindfully take your seat. Let the very act of sitting be a meditation in itself. Feel the texture of the cushion or the chair beneath you. Feel the way your body yields to gravity. This is your throne of stillness. With the outer world settled and our transition made, we now turn to the most vital element of our preparation, our intention. In our goal-oriented world, this is a deeply misunderstood concept. An intention is not a goal. A goal is a destination, something to achieve in the future. A goal says, I want to get rid of my anxiety, or I need to have a profound spiritual experience. A goal creates pressure, a benchmark for success or failure. And in this sacred space, there is no success or failure. There is only showing up. An intention, on the other hand, is a direction, a quality of heart we choose to bring to the present moment. It is a gentle whisper, not a demanding shout. It is the compass, not the map. For our journey tonight, I invite you to set an intention of allowing, simply to allow. To allow whatever is here to be here. To allow feelings to surface without needing to name or fix them. To allow thoughts to drift by without needing to follow them. To allow this moment exactly as it is to be enough. Perhaps your intention is, for these 3 hours, I will be kind to myself. Or, my intention is to listen to my body with compassion. Or simply, I am open. Feel into what resonates for you. State it silently in your own heart, and then let it go. You have planted the seed. You do not need to keep digging it up to see if it is growing. Trust that it will guide your practice from a place deeper than thought. There is an old story of a traveler who had been walking for weeks, his mind fixed on reaching a distant, fabled city where he believed he would find ultimate peace and happiness. His journey was arduous. The sun beat down on him. His feet were sore. His mind was filled with the anxieties of the road and the longing for his destination. He barely noticed the landscapes he passed through. His entire being was consumed by the goal. One afternoon, more weary than he had ever been, he saw a great, ancient banyan tree by the side of the road. Its vast branches offered a deep, inviting pool of shade. On an impulse he did not understand, he abandoned his path for a moment and collapsed at the base of its enormous trunk. He closed his eyes, not to sleep, but simply to stop walking, to stop striving, to stop thinking about the destination. In that moment of absolute stillness, with the cool earth beneath him and the rustle of leaves above him, a profound sense of peace washed over him, deeper and more real than anything he had imagined finding in the fabled city. He realized in that sacred pause that peace was not a place he had to get to. It was a state of being that was available to him the entire time, right there in the simple act of stopping. Tonight, you are this traveler. This meditation is your banyan tree. You are giving yourself permission to stop. Peace is not the destination of this 3-hour journey. It is here, now, waiting for you in the pause. Finally, let us settle the body. Your posture is the physical expression of your intention. It is the form that holds your awareness. Find a position that embodies a balance between relaxation and alertness. If you are in a chair, sit with your feet flat on the floor, your back straight but not rigid, away from the back of the chair if possible. If you are on a cushion, cross your legs in a way that feels stable and comfortable for you. You can be a majestic mountain. Your lower body is the base of the mountain, solid, grounded, unmovable. Feel your connection to the earth. Your spine is the mountain's peak, rising effortlessly towards the sky, creating a sense of dignity and lift. Let your shoulders relax, dropping away from your ears. Let your hands rest gently on your lap or your knees, palms up in a gesture of receiving, or palms down for a sense of grounding. Let your chin be slightly tucked so the back of your neck is long and open. Your eyes can be gently closed, or if you prefer, you can leave them slightly open with a soft, unfocused gaze toward the floor a few feet in front of you. Take a moment to scan your body for any unnecessary tension. Are you clenching your jaw, furrowing your brow, tightening your stomach? Soften, release. There is no need to hold on so tightly. This posture is not a punishment or an endurance test. It is an act of kindness to yourself. It communicates to your entire nervous system. I am safe. I am present. I am awake. I am at ease. And so, we are ready. The space around you is quiet. The intention of allowing has been set in your heart. Your body is settled, a mountain of peaceful dignity. You have stepped off the hurried path of your life and have come to rest under the shade of this sacred pause. All the preparation is complete. You have built the vessel. Now, we will begin to turn our attention inward, to the gentle, rhythmic tide that is always with us, the most fundamental anchor of our being. We will turn our attention to the breath now that you have settled into your sacred space, your island of stillness. The first question that arises in the quiet is often, what now? What am I supposed to do? The mind, so accustomed to activity, looks for a task. And here, we offer it the most simple, most profound, and most ancient task of all, to simply notice the breath. We do nothing to it. We do not change it. We do not force it. We do not judge it. We simply bring our attention to this gentle rhythm that has been with us since the moment of our birth and will be with us until our very last. Why the breath? Of all the things we could focus on, why this simple, unassuming process? For three essential reasons. Firstly, the breath is always in the present moment. Your thoughts can drag you into the swirling vortex of the past, replaying old hurts and regrets. Your thoughts can launch you into the anxious fog of the future, rehearsing fears and spinning scenarios. But you can never take a breath in the past or a breath in the future. Each breath, this one right now, is happening only in this immediate, vibrant moment. To rest your attention on the breath is to tether yourself to the now, the only place where life is actually unfolding. It is a direct antidote to the time-traveling nature of the anxious mind. Secondly, the breath is always available. It is the most democratic, most accessible tool for mindfulness we possess. You do not need to be in a special place. You do not need any equipment. You do not need to believe in anything at all. Wherever you are, whatever you are doing, your breath is with you. It is a constant, reliable companion. In this, it is a profoundly faithful friend, one that we so often ignore. Tonight, we are simply choosing to pay attention to this friend, to listen to its quiet wisdom. And thirdly, the breath is an exquisitely honest mirror of our inner state. When you are frightened or angry, the breath becomes short, shallow, and rapid. When you are relaxed and at peace, the breath naturally becomes deep, slow, and even. By observing the breath without trying to change it, you are getting a direct, unfiltered report from your own nervous system. It tells you the truth of your inner weather, without the layers of story and judgment that the mind usually adds. It is a barometer of the soul. So, let us begin this gentle observation. Bring your awareness to the physical sensations of breathing. To help the mind settle, it can be useful to choose one primary spot to rest your attention. For some, this is the tip of the nostrils. You can feel the subtle coolness of the air as it enters your body and the slight warmth as it leaves. It is a delicate, ever-present sensation. Feel the air passing over the skin, a gentle touch. For others, a better anchor point is the chest. You can feel the gentle expansion of the rib cage as the lungs fill, and the subtle release and fall as the air is expelled. There is a sense of opening and closing, a rhythm of expansion and contraction. And for many, the most grounding place to feel the breath is in the abdomen. Resting your hands there can be helpful. You can feel the soft rise of the belly on the in-breath as the diaphragm pushes down, and the gentle falling back of the belly on the out-breath. It is a deep, primal rhythm, like the slow tide of the ocean. Choose whichever of these spots feels most clear and comfortable for you right now. There is no right or wrong answer. Simply choose one and let your attention rest there gently. Your only task is to feel the raw sensations of one full breath, from the very beginning of the inhalation all the way to the very end of the exhalation, and then to feel the next one. Don't try to control it. The body has been breathing perfectly its entire life without your conscious intervention. Your job is not to become the manager of the breath, but the curious, friendly scientist, or perhaps the loving grandparent, watching a sleeping child breathe with affectionate attention. Let the breath be exactly as it is. If it is shallow, let it be shallow. If it is deep, let it be deep. If it is fast, let it be fast. If it is slow, let it be slow. We are letting go of all control, all manipulation. We are simply feeling. It is helpful to use the image of a boat on the ocean. Your mind is the boat. The vast ocean is the stream of your consciousness, filled with thoughts, feelings, memories, and sensations. The winds and currents are the events of your life, the emotional weather that moves through you. For most of our lives, our little boat is untethered, pushed and pulled by every wave of thought, every gust of emotion. We are carried into waters of anxiety, swept into whirlpools of anger, or becalmed in seas of boredom, with no sense of agency. The breath is your anchor. When you gently place your attention on the physical sensations of breathing, you are dropping anchor. This does not stop the ocean. The waves of thought will still rise and fall. The winds of emotion will still blow, but your boat will no longer be carried away. It will remain in place, gently bobbing, held steady in the present moment. You can now watch the weather of your mind without being lost in it. You are no longer the victim of the storm. You are the anchored observer, safe in your vessel. Now, you will notice, perhaps you already have, that the mind does not stay on the breath for long. A thought will arise. Am I doing this right? A memory will surface. I forgot to send that email. A sound will catch your attention. A plan will begin to form. This is absolutely, completely, 100% natural. This is what minds do. They produce thoughts. To expect your mind not to think is like expecting your heart not to beat. The wandering of the mind is not a mistake. It is not a sign that you are failing at meditation. In fact, it is the entire point. Because the true practice, the moment of magic, is not in staying on the breath, but in the gentle, compassionate act of returning to it, over and over and over again. The moment you realize, my mind has wandered, that very moment of realizing is a moment of pure mindfulness. In that instant, you are awake. You have caught the monkey mind in the act of swinging from branch to branch. And what do you do when you notice this? You do not scold the monkey. You do not get frustrated. You simply, and with infinite patience, gently acknowledge where the mind went, thinking or worrying, and then you kindly, gently guide your attention back to your anchor, back to the feeling of the breath in your nostrils, your chest, or your abdomen. If you have to do this 10 times, you do it 10 times. If you have to do it 1,000 times during this session, then your practice tonight consists of 1,000 moments of gentle, patient returning. This returning is the bicep curl for your attention muscle. This is the heart of the practice. There is a subtle but important distinction to be aware of here. The difference between feeling the breath and thinking about the breath. The conceptual mind is very clever. It can take any direct experience and turn it into a story. You may find yourself starting to narrate the experience. Now I am breathing in. It is a long breath. Now I am breathing out. That was a short breath. Or you might be analyzing it. Is this the right way to breathe? Maybe I should try to make it deeper. Am I as calm as I should be by now? This is the mind thinking about breathing. It is one step removed from the direct experience. The invitation is to let go of the commentary, to let go of the analysis, and to drop back into pure, raw, physical sensation. Can you feel the simple tingling at the nostrils without the words cool air? Can you feel the stretch of your ribs without the thought my chest is expanding? This is a shift from the head to the body. It is a move from the abstract to the real. It is in this direct, non-conceptual feeling that the deep grounding occurs. It is here that the anchor truly takes hold, deep in the seabed of your being, providing a stability that concepts and thoughts can never offer. So, each time you return from a thought, see if you can return not just to the idea of the breath, but to its raw, living, vibrating sensation right now in this moment. This is your home base, your safe harbor, your anchor in the vast and beautiful ocean of being. Having established a gentle connection with the rhythm of the breath, having found our anchor in the present moment, we can now begin to broaden our awareness. We have a stable home base, a safe harbor to return to. From this place of relative stillness, we are going to embark on a journey of discovery, a journey through the inner landscape of your own body. For most of us in the modern world, we live disconnected from our bodies. We treat them like vehicles to carry our heads from one meeting to the next. We feed them distractedly, and we only pay attention to them when they scream at us in pain or illness. We live in the penthouse of our minds, disconnected from the rich, feeling life of the floors below. But the body is not just a machine, it is a living, breathing archive of our entire existence. It is a landscape that holds the memory of every joy, every sorrow, every fear you have ever experienced. Emotions are not abstract concepts floating in your mind. They are physiological events. They have texture, temperature, and weight. Anxiety might be a cold, vibrating hum in your chest. Sadness can feel like a heavy blanket over your shoulders. Joy can be a warm, expansive lightness in your heart. The unresolved experiences, the unhealed wounds, what we are calling emotional karma, do not simply vanish. They become stored in the body as chronic muscular tension, as habitual postures, as areas of numbness or persistent aches. The body keeps the score, and it never lies. Our practice now is to learn to read that score, not with judgment, but with immense kindness and curiosity. We will approach this practice like a wise and patient gardener walking through their own cherished piece of land for the first time in a long while. We are not here with shears and shovels, ready to violently uproot every weed we find. This is not a mission of conquest. We are here simply to get reacquainted with the territory. We will walk slowly, gently, and lovingly, noticing where the soil is soft and where it is hard, where the sun-loving flowers are blooming and where, in the shade, the tangled weeds have grown. The gardener does not hate the weeds. They understand that the weeds are simply a part of the garden's story, a sign that a particular area needs more light and care. So, as we move through the body, if you encounter a sensation of tightness, pain, or numbness, see if you can meet it with this gardener's mind. Simply notice it. Ah, here is a patch of hard, dry soil, without the added story of, this is my terrible anxiety. I hate it. I need to get rid of it. We are simply taking inventory, lovingly mapping the landscape as it is, right now. Let us begin this gentle scan, using the breath as our vehicle of awareness. Bring your attention all the way down, down, down to the soles of your feet. Let your awareness completely fill your feet. What do you feel here in your direct experience? Perhaps you can feel the pressure where they touch the floor or a cushion. You might notice a sensation of warmth or coolness. There might be a tingling, an aliveness. Perhaps the feet feel tired, or perhaps they feel numb with very little sensation at all. Whatever is there is perfect. If there is numbness, just be aware of the numbness. There is no need to force a feeling that isn't there. The practice is to be honest with what you find. Now, see if you can imagine your breath flowing all the way down to your feet. With each in-breath, imagine a wave of gentle, accepting awareness washing over your feet. With each out-breath, a sense of softening, of letting go. Slowly, let your awareness travel up from your feet into your ankles, your calves, and your shins. Just feeling. Not thinking about your legs, but feeling them from the inside out. Notice any sensations of tension, tightness, or perhaps ease. You have been walking on these legs your whole life. They carry you through the world. For these few moments, simply let them be held in your kind, non-judgmental attention. Now bring your awareness into your knees, a complex joint that carries so much weight. Be gentle here. Just notice the sensations present. Then move up into the large muscles of your thighs, your hamstrings and quadriceps. Feel their strength, their volume. Feel the places where they connect to your hips, your pelvis, the great bowl at the base of your torso. This area is often a deep reservoir of stored emotion. Without searching for anything, simply let your awareness rest here. Notice the points of contact with your seat, the feeling of weight, of gravity, of being supported. Breathe into this entire pelvic region with a sense of softness and allowing. From this base, let the gardener's gentle gaze move into your abdomen, your belly. This is another area where we hold so much. Anxiety, fear, unprocessed feelings. The habit of the mind is to tighten here, to brace against the world. See if you can notice what is present for you. Is there a knot of tension, a fluttering, a feeling of emptiness or fullness? Whatever you find, meet it with the breath. Instead of tightening against it, see if you can soften around the edges of the sensation. Imagine your breath could gently massage this area from the inside, creating space, creating kindness. You are not trying to make the feeling go away. You are simply changing your relationship to it. You are meeting it with compassion instead of resistance. Now, allow the field of your awareness to expand upward into your chest, the home of your heart and lungs. Feel the gentle rhythmic movement here as you breathe, the rise and fall. This area can hold deep grief, sadness, but also great joy and love. What is the weather like in your heart space right now? Is it open and spacious, or is it constricted and guarded? Again, there is no right or wrong answer. Simply notice. Be the curious gardener, observing the climate in this part of the land. Then, let your awareness move into your lower back and travel slowly up your spine, vertebra by vertebra. Notice the curves of your back, any areas of ache or tension. This is the central pillar of your physical being. Send it your gratitude and your kind attention. Let your awareness spread across your shoulder blades and into your shoulders. The shoulders are notorious for carrying the burdens of our lives, the weight of responsibility. Do you feel that weight now? Can you, just for this moment, let the shoulders soften? Let them drop, releasing a burden you might not have even known you were carrying. Let your awareness flow down from your shoulders, through your upper arms, your elbows, your forearms, and all the way into your hands. Let your attention fill your hands completely. Feel your palms, the back of your hands, each finger one by one. Can you feel the subtle pulse of life in your fingertips? These hands that do so much for you in the world, that grasp and hold and create. For now, let them simply rest, held in the warmth of your awareness. They don't need to do anything at all. Now, journey back up your arms to the shoulders and bring your awareness to your neck, another place of great tension. Gently notice the sensations here, the muscles that hold up your head all day. Soften, and then bring your awareness into your jaw. We clench our jaw to hold back words, to suppress anger, to brace ourselves. Consciously allow the muscles in your jaw to go slack. Let your teeth part slightly. Feel the release. Let this softness spread up into your face. Soften the muscles around your mouth, your cheeks. Soften your eyes in their sockets. Soften the space between your eyebrows, a place where worry so often lives. Soften your entire forehead, all the way up to your hairline. Finally, let your awareness rest on the very top of your head, the crown. And from this vantage point, see if you can feel your entire body at once, from the soles of your feet to the crown of your head, as one single, unified field of sensation. A whole landscape, breathing, tingling, alive. You have walked through your entire garden, not with judgment, but with a gentle, curious, and kind attention. You have become reacquainted with yourself. You have begun to learn the language of your own body, the way it speaks the truth of your emotional life. You may have discovered areas of tightness, of numbness, of pain. These are not problems to be fixed. They are simply messengers. They are the imprints of your karma, the physical evidence of your life's journey. And by meeting them with this accepting awareness, you have already begun the profound process of healing. You have brought light and air to the hard soil. Now that we have lovingly identified these sensations, these knots of energy, a new question arises. Are they as solid and permanent as they feel? To answer this, we will now turn our gentle inquiry toward one of the most liberating insights of Buddhist wisdom, the universal truth of impermanence. We have arrived at a place of profound possibility. We have stood at the edge of the unseen river of our own dissatisfaction. We have traced it back to its source in the deep well of our own craving, and we have glimpsed the other shore, a state of being where the raging waters of suffering can in fact cease. This is not a fantasy, not a distant heaven, but a reality of the mind, a potential for peace called Nirodha, the end of suffering. The recognition of this possibility is the most powerful catalyst for any spiritual journey, for it replaces despair with hope and resignation with purpose. But hope alone does not build a bridge, and purpose alone does not chart a course. The natural, vital, and most human question that arises from this recognition is how? How do we cross this river? How do we navigate from the shore of confusion and anxiety to the shore of clarity and peace? What is the way? The answer given by the Buddha is not a single miraculous leap, but a path, a gradual, practical, and comprehensive path that can be walked by any human being willing to undertake the journey. This path is called the Noble Eightfold Path, and it is the very heart of the practice, the living blueprint for transforming suffering into wisdom. It is the map that has been passed down for over 2 millennia, a guide not to a new land, but to a new way of living in this one. When we hear the word path, and especially a path with 8 components, our modern minds, conditioned for checklists and sequential goals, might immediately assume it is a series of steps. Step 1, then step 2, then step 3, until we reach step 8 and graduate. This is a fundamental misunderstanding of its nature. The Noble Eightfold Path is not a ladder to be climbed, but a multifaceted jewel to be polished. Its 8 factors are not sequential stages, but interwoven aspects of a single, holistic way of life, each one supporting and deepening all the others. To think of it linearly is to miss its profound and dynamic synergy. Imagine, for a moment, cultivating a healthy body. You cannot simply focus on diet for 5 years and then, once that is perfected, move on to exercise for another 5 years and then finally begin to practice getting enough sleep. This is absurd. A healthy body arises from the simultaneous cultivation of good nutrition, consistent movement, and adequate rest. They are interdependent. The quality of your sleep affects your energy for exercise, and your exercise affects your appetite and metabolism. So it is with this path. The way you speak influences your actions. Your actions shape your livelihood. Your livelihood affects your mental states. Your mental states influence your ability to concentrate. Your concentration clarifies your understanding. And your understanding, in turn, refines your speech, your actions, and your very thoughts. It is a beautiful, intricate dance of becoming, where every part is essential to the integrity of the whole. To make this comprehensive map easier to read, its 8 factors are traditionally grouped into 3 essential trainings, 3 pillars that hold up the entire structure of a liberated life. These are Panya, or wisdom, Sila, or ethical conduct, and Samadhi, or mental discipline. Wisdom, Panya, is the faculty of seeing clearly. It is the compass, the guiding star of the journey. It answers the questions, where am I going, and what is true? This category includes the first 2 factors of the path, right view and right intention. It is the cognitive, the understanding part of our transformation. Next is ethical conduct, or Sila. This is the way we move through the world, the way we interact with others and with ourselves. If wisdom is the compass, Sila is the skill of walking the path without stumbling, without causing harm, and without creating more suffering for ourselves or anyone else. It is the embodiment of our wisdom in our daily lives. This training includes 3 factors: right speech, right action, and right livelihood. Finally, we have the 3rd training, mental discipline, or Samadhi. This is the cultivation of the mind itself. It is the inner work of strengthening our heart and mind, developing the focus, resilience, and stability needed to continue on the path. It is the engine that powers the journey. This pillar includes the final 3 factors: right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. Together, these 3 trainings form a complete system for human flourishing, a path that addresses our understanding, our behavior, and the quality of our inner world. This path is also described as the middle way. Before his enlightenment, the man who would become the Buddha, Siddhartha Gautama, was an expert in extremes. He had lived a life of ultimate sensual pleasure, shielded in a palace from all forms of suffering, with every desire catered to, but he found it hollow, a gilded cage that could not touch the deep, underlying current of dissatisfaction. So, he abandoned that life and threw himself into the other extreme, that of severe asceticism. He starved his body, held his breath until his head felt like it would split open, and practiced extreme forms of self-mortification, believing that by punishing the body, he could liberate the spirit. But this too, he found, was a dead end. A weakened body only leads to a weakened mind, and tortured mind cannot find clarity. It was only when he collapsed from exhaustion and accepted a simple bowl of milk rice from a village girl that he realized the truth. The path to liberation lay not in indulgence, nor in deprivation, but in the middle, in a place of radical balance. There is a beautiful story that illustrates this realization perfectly. The Buddha was speaking to a monk named Sona, who had been practicing with such ferocious, unbalanced effort that he was becoming discouraged and was thinking of giving up. The Buddha, knowing Sona had been a musician, a lute player before he became a monk, asked him a simple question. Sona, when the strings of your lute were tuned too tightly, was the lute pleasant to play? Was it in tune? Sona replied, "No, venerable sir." The Buddha then asked, "And when the strings of your lute were too loose, was it pleasant to play? Was it in tune?" Again Sona replied, "No, venerable sir, but when the strings," the Buddha continued, "were not too tight and not too loose, but tuned to an even pitch, was the lute then pleasant to play, in tune, and serviceable?" "Yes, venerable sir," Sona answered. The Buddha then concluded, "In the same way, Sona, energy that is stretched too tightly leads to restlessness, and energy that is too slack leads to laziness. Therefore, resolve on a balance of energy. Achieve a balance of the spiritual faculties and take that as your aim. This is the essence of the middle way. It is not a path of mediocrity or compromise, but a path of exquisite, skillful balance. It avoids the trap of seeking happiness in the fleeting pleasures of the world, and it avoids the trap of seeking holiness through self-punishment. It is a path for human beings living human lives, a path that recognizes our nature and shows us how to work with it, not against it. It is a path of sanity in a world that often pulls us toward extremes. This is perhaps the most crucial point for us, as modern people looking to this ancient wisdom for guidance. This path was not designed exclusively for monks and nuns living in seclusion in a forest monastery. It was designed for humanity. Its principles are universal. Right speech is not just for the meditation hall. It is for the boardroom meeting, the family dinner table, and the social media comment section. Right livelihood is a direct engagement with our careers, with the global economy, and with the ethical dilemmas of earning a living in a complex world. Right mindfulness is not just for a cushion. It is for the experience of being stuck in traffic, of washing the dishes, of listening to a friend in need. This is a path of engagement, not of escape. It invites us to take the whole of our life, with all its messiness, its challenges, and its beauty, as the very ground of our practice. It gives us a map, a comprehensive and practical chart that shows us how to navigate the terrain of our own existence with greater wisdom, greater kindness, and greater peace. It is the Buddha's greatest gift, a complete curriculum for the art of living. So the map is now unrolled before us. We see its 8 interconnected roads. We see how they are grouped into the 3 great trainings of wisdom, ethical conduct, and mental discipline. We understand that this is a middle way, a path of balance and sanity. The sheer scope of it can feel immense, but every great journey begins with a single, crucial first step. And on this map, the starting point of all true travel, the point from which all else flows, is learning to see clearly. It is the cultivation of wisdom, which begins with the first factor of the path. It begins with right view. For without seeing where we are and where we are going, any movement is just aimless wandering. We must first learn to see the world and ourselves as they truly are. We have unrolled the map of the Noble Eightfold Path, and before us lies a comprehensive guide for the journey from confusion to clarity. We see its interwoven components, its structure of wisdom, conduct, and mental discipline. We understand its spirit as a middle way, a path of profound and practical balance. But a map, no matter how perfect, is useless if we hold it upside down. A compass is of no value if we cannot read which way the needle points. Before we can take a single meaningful step, we must first orient ourselves. We must know where we are, and we must see the landscape for what it is. This crucial, foundational act of orientation is the first factor of the path. It is called Sama Ditti, or right view. It is the pair of eyes with which we learn to see the world, not as we wish it were, not as we fear it to be, not as we have been conditioned to see it, but as it truly is. Without right view, our efforts will be misguided, our actions will be fruitless, and our journey will be a wandering in circles. It is the beginning, the guide, and the constant companion of the entire path. It is essential from the very start to understand what right view is not. In our modern culture, the word view is often equated with opinion. We have political views, social views, views on art and music. These are subjective preferences, personal beliefs, often held tightly and defended fiercely. Right view is not an opinion. It is also not a dogma, a set of rigid beliefs that must be accepted with blind faith. The Buddha was not interested in followers who simply believed his words. The entire spirit of his teaching is encapsulated in the phrase "ehai pasiko," which means, come and see for yourself. It is an invitation to investigate, to question, to explore, and to validate the truth through the lens of your own direct experience. Right view, therefore, is more like a working hypothesis about the nature of reality and the cause of suffering. It is a lens that we are invited to look through and to see if the world doesn't become clearer, more coherent, and more navigable when we do. It is the difference between being told that a fire is hot and understanding the nature of heat by cautiously, mindfully approaching the flame yourself. So what does this lens of right view allow us to see? The most fundamental level of right view is the clear comprehension of the Four Noble Truths. This is the bedrock of all Buddhist understanding. We have touched upon these truths already, but now we see them in their proper context as the very definition of a correct perspective. The first noble truth is the right view that acknowledges the reality of dukkha, the pervasive unsatisfactoriness of life. It is looking squarely at our anxiety, our stress, our subtle and gross pains, without flinching, without denial, and without pessimism, but with calm, diagnostic clarity. The second noble truth is the right view that understands the cause of this dukkha, tracing it back to the inner mechanism of craving and clinging of tanha. It is the insight that our suffering is not random, nor is it inflicted upon us by an outside force. It arises from identifiable patterns within our own minds. The third noble truth is the right view that recognizes the possibility of the cessation of this suffering, the reality of nirodha. It is the understanding that since suffering has a cause, if we remove the cause, the suffering will cease. This is the view that instills hope and makes the path meaningful. And the fourth noble truth is the right view that embraces the Noble Eightfold Path itself as the practical method for achieving this cessation. To hold right view at its most basic level is to see your life through this fourfold framework, to see the illness, to understand the cause, to know there is a cure, and to accept the medicine. Building upon this foundation, right view expands to include a clear understanding of the law of kama or karma. In the West, karma is often distorted into a simplistic idea of cosmic justice, a system of rewards and punishments meted out by some unseen judge. The Buddhist understanding is far more subtle, psychological, and empowering. Karma is simply the law of cause and effect as it applies to intentional action. The word karma literally means action. It states that every volitional action we perform through our body, our speech, and most importantly, our mind is a cause that will have a corresponding effect. Wholesome intentions, rooted in generosity, kindness, and wisdom, create wholesome karma, leading to happiness and peace. Unwholesome intentions, rooted in greed, hatred, and delusion, create unwholesome karma, leading to suffering. This is not a moral judgment from an external power. It is an impersonal, natural law, like the law of gravity. If you plant an apple seed, you will get an apple tree, not a mango tree. If you plant seeds of anger, you will harvest turmoil. If you plant seeds of compassion, you will harvest peace. This understanding is profoundly empowering because it places the responsibility for our lives squarely in our own hands. We are not the victims of a chaotic universe. We are the architects of our own experience. The present moment is the result of our past actions, and the future is being shaped by our present actions right now. As our vision clears further, the lens of right view reveals an even deeper layer of reality, known as the three marks of existence. These are three universal characteristics of all conditioned phenomena. The first is anicca, or impermanence. Nothing is static. Everything is in a state of flux. Our bodies are changing with every breath. Our thoughts and feelings arise and pass away in moments. Relationships evolve. Societies shift. Mountains erode. Stars are born and die. The entire universe is a dance of becoming and unbecoming. Our suffering often arises from our resistance to this truth. We try to grasp onto pleasant moments, hold on to youth, and build permanent structures on shifting ground. Right view is to see this flow, to understand it, and to learn to dance with it, rather than trying to stand still in the middle of the river. The second mark is dukkha, which we have already met. We now see it in relation to impermanence. Because everything is impermanent, our clinging to these transient things as a source of lasting happiness is doomed to failure. This is the subtle, existential friction of life, the inherent unsatisfactoriness of seeking permanence where none can be found. The third mark, and arguably the most profound, is anatta, or no self. This is the insight that within this constantly changing flux of mind and body, there is no fixed, independent, separate I or soul that exists as a permanent entity. What we call our self is, like a chariot or a car, a convenient label for an assembly of changing parts in this case, the five aggregates of form, feeling, perception, mental formations, and consciousness. This insight is not nihilistic. It does not mean you do not exist. It means you exist not as a static noun, but as a dynamic verb. You are a process, a flowing current of experience. As we will explore later, letting go of the rigid idea of a separate self is the key to unlocking immense freedom, compassion, and relief from anxiety. There is a famous parable that perfectly illustrates the difference between wrong view and right view. A king once brought a group of men who had been born blind to his courtyard. In the center of the yard stood an elephant. The king asked them to approach the elephant and describe it. The first man reached out and touched the elephant's thick, sturdy leg. "Your Majesty," he proclaimed, "an elephant is like a massive pillar." The second man got a hold of the elephant's tail. "No," he argued, "an elephant is like a rope with a frayed end." The third man touched the smooth, sharp tusk. "You are both wrong," he declared. "An elephant is like a cold, hard spear." Another touched the wide, leathery ear and described it as a fan, while the one who touched its broadside insisted it was like a wall. A great argument broke out, each man clinging to his own limited experience, utterly convinced that he alone possessed the whole truth. Each of them was, in a very limited sense, correct. But because they mistook their partial experience for the complete reality, they were all profoundly wrong. Wrong view is being one of the blind men, clinging to our small, conditioned piece of the truth or opinions, our beliefs, our personal history, and declaring it to be the whole picture. It is the source of all dogmatism, conflict, and misunderstanding. Right view is the practice of trying to see the whole elephant. It is the humility to acknowledge that our current perspective is limited, and the wisdom to seek a more complete and holistic understanding. It is the ability to hold our own views lightly and to listen to the experiences of others, gradually piecing together a more accurate map of reality. Right view is not a destination we arrive at once and for all. It is a continuous practice of refining our vision. It begins with learning, with hearing these teachings, and developing a conceptual understanding, sutta maya panya. Then, it deepens through reflection and contemplation, through thinking deeply about these principles and how they apply to our lives, cinta maya panya. And finally, it becomes a true, unshakable insight through direct, personal experience, primarily through the practice of meditation bhavana maya panya. It is a gradual clearing of the fog. Each time we mindfully observe our anger rise and fall, we see impermanence. Each time we notice how a kind thought leads to a feeling of ease, we see karma in action. Each time we recognize the constant chatter of our minds without identifying with it, we get a glimpse of no self. This is how the map becomes the territory. When our view of the world begins to change, our priorities and aspirations naturally change with it. When we truly begin to see the connection between our actions and our happiness, between clinging and suffering, our intentions begin to shift. We are no longer motivated purely by the blind pursuit of pleasure or the avoidance of pain. A new motivation arises, one born of this clearer vision. We begin to intentionally cultivate thoughts and aspirations that are in harmony with reality, thoughts that lead away from harm and towards healing for ourselves and for others. This movement, from seeing things correctly to thinking and aspiring correctly, is the natural and seamless transition from right view to the second factor of the path, right intention. With our eyes opened by right view, we begin to see the landscape of our existence with a newfound clarity. We see the terrain of impermanence. We understand the law of cause and effect, and we hold a map that shows a path from suffering to peace. But seeing the map is only the beginning. A map shows many possible routes. A hiker standing at a trailhead, map in hand, must still decide which way to turn. They must form an intention, a direction for their journey. This conscious, deliberate act of orienting the heart and mind is the second factor of the path, samma sankappa, or right intention. It is the rudder of the ship. Right view may be the lookout in the crow's nest who sees the lighthouse, but right intention is the hand on the tiller that steers the vessel towards it. It is the vital bridge that connects our understanding to our will, translating the wisdom we have seen into the energy that moves us forward. Without it, our wisdom remains a sterile, intellectual abstraction. With it, our wisdom becomes a living, breathing force for transformation. There is a line at the very beginning of the Dhammapada, one of the most ancient and revered Buddhist texts, that captures the power of this faculty perfectly. It says, "Mind precedes all mental states. Mind is their chief. They are all mind wrought. If with an impure mind a person speaks or acts, suffering follows him like the wheel that follows the foot of the ox. If with a pure mind a person speaks or acts, happiness follows him like his never-departing shadow." Point 1. This is a radical statement. It declares that our fundamental experience of reality is forged in the crucible of our own mind by the quality of our own intentions. Our intention is the coloring, the flavor we give to every experience. Imagine two people sitting in the same silent room. One sits with an intention of resentment, replaying an old argument in their mind, and the room becomes a prison cell, the silence a torment. The other sits with an intention of peace, feeling the simple sensation of their own breath, and the same room becomes a sanctuary, the silence a balm. The room did not change. The intention changed everything. Right intention is the practice of consciously and skillfully choosing the pure intentions that lead to happiness, and gently letting go of the impure intentions that lead to suffering. It is the art of becoming the master of our own inner world, rather than its victim. The Buddha, with his characteristic clarity, specified 3 distinct types of right intention that we are to cultivate. These 3 stand in direct opposition to the 3 root causes of our unease: greed, hatred, and cruelty. The first of these is the intention of renunciation, or nikkama. For the modern ear, the word renunciation can sound harsh, suggesting a life of bleak deprivation. But its true meaning is far more joyful and liberating. It is better understood as the intention of letting go. It is the gentle release of our white-knuckled grip on the things that cause us stress. It is the conscious decision to turn away from the insatiable thirst of craving that we identified as the source of dukkha. This is the intention to let go of obsessive attachment to possessions, to status, to praise. It is the willingness to release our addiction to certain outcomes and to find peace with what is. It is also the release of inner baggage, letting go of old grudges, of past failures, of the need to be right in every argument. The intention of renunciation is not about impoverishing your life. It is about simplifying it, about decluttering the mind so that there is space for genuine peace and contentment to arise. It is the understanding that true wealth is not found in having more, but in wanting less. The second form of right intention is the intention of goodwill, or avyapada. This is the direct antidote to the poison of ill will, anger, resentment, and hatred. It is the active, heartfelt wish for the well-being and happiness of all beings without exception. This is the seed of what will later blossom into the practice of metta, or loving kindness. It is a fundamental shift in our inner posture towards the world. Instead of seeing others as competitors, as threats, or as obstacles to our own happiness, we begin to see them as fellow travelers, each, like us, wanting happiness and wishing to avoid suffering. The intention of goodwill does not mean we must passively accept harmful behavior, but it does mean that we respond from a place of clarity and a desire for the ultimate well-being of all, rather than from a place of blind, reactive hatred. It is the silent, inner whisper that says, "May you be well, may you be happy, may you be free from suffering." We cultivate this intention first for ourselves, then for our loved ones, then for neutral people, and, in its most profound practice, even for those we find difficult. It is a radical act of inner peacemaking that calms our own heart and changes how we perceive everyone we meet. The third form of right intention is the intention of harmlessness, or avihimsa. This is the antidote to cruelty and violence, both inner and outer. It is the profound and sensitive wish that all beings, including ourselves, be free from harm. This is the seed of karuna, or compassion. It arises from an empathy so deep that the suffering of another touches our own heart, and our primary intention becomes not to add to the world's great store of pain. This harmlessness extends to all forms of life, leading to a reverence for the interconnected web of existence. But critically, it must also be directed inward. For many of us, the most relentless source of harm comes from our own inner critic, the voice of merciless self-judgment. The intention of harmlessness means laying down this weapon. It means treating ourselves with the same kindness and understanding we would offer to a dear friend who is struggling. It is the resolution to stop harming ourselves with cycles of guilt and shame, and instead to offer ourselves the gift of compassion. When we cultivate this intention, our very presence becomes safer, gentler, and more healing both for ourselves and for those around us. There is a timeless story, often attributed to the Cherokee people, that beautifully illustrates the practice of cultivating right intention. An elder is teaching his grandchild about life. He says, "A fight is going on inside me. It is a terrible fight, and it is between two wolves. One is evil. He is anger, envy, sorrow, regret, greed, arrogance, self-pity, guilt, resentment, inferiority, lies, false pride, superiority, and ego." He continued, "The other is good. He is joy, peace, love, hope, serenity, humility, kindness, benevolence, empathy, generosity, truth, compassion, and faith." The same fight is going on inside you, and inside every other person too. The grandchild thought about it for a minute, and then asked his grandfather, "Which wolf will win?" The old Cherokee simply replied, "The one you feed." This story is a perfect metaphor for right intention. Our minds produce all kinds of thoughts, a menagerie of wolves. We are not to blame for the presence of the angry wolf. It is a part of our conditioned nature. But we have the power to choose which wolf we will feed. Every time we indulge in a resentful thought, we are feeding the angry wolf. Every time we entertain a fantasy of greed, we are feeding the angry wolf. But every time we consciously turn our mind towards an intention of goodwill, we are feeding the good wolf. Every time we choose to let go of a grievance, we are feeding the good wolf. Every time we offer ourselves a moment of compassion instead of criticism, we are feeding the good wolf. Right intention is the daily, moment-to-moment practice of choosing which wolf to nourish. This process of transformation is a gentle and skillful one. It begins with mindfulness, the simple, non-judgmental recognition of what is present in the mind. We learn to notice, there is the intention of ill will. We do not condemn ourselves for it. We simply see it. This is the wolf emerging from the trees. Then, instead of immediately giving it our food, our attention, and belief, we simply allow it to be there for a moment, observing it with a gentle curiosity. We might ask, what is this feeling? Where did it come from? Then comes the conscious act of substitution, the turning of the mind. We gently withdraw our energy from the unskillful thought and deliberately incline the mind towards a skillful one. We replace the thought of resentment with a thought of understanding. We replace the thought of grasping with a thought of generosity. We replace the thought of cruelty with a thought of care. We may have to do this 100 times a day, but each time we do it, the good wolf gets a little stronger, and the angry wolf, starved of its usual meal, begins to lose its power over us. Right intention is the loom upon which the fabric of our life is woven. It is the invisible, silent force that gives shape to our entire existence. It is the crucial pivot point, the place where the wisdom of right view is transformed from a passive understanding into an active, creative force. Our intentions are the blueprints for everything we do and say. A house built from a blueprint of greed and haste will be unstable and ugly. A house built from a blueprint of care and generosity will be strong and beautiful. In the same way, a life shaped by intentions of ill will and craving will be one of conflict and stress. A life shaped by intentions of letting go, goodwill, and harmlessness will be one of ever-increasing peace and freedom. As we cultivate these wholesome intentions in the silent garden of our mind, they will inevitably begin to overflow, manifesting in the world through what we say and what we do. And so, the path naturally leads us from the inner world of thought to its first outward expression, our words. From the silent, fertile ground of right intention, the first shoots of our practice emerge into the world, and they emerge through the vehicle of our words. Speech is the most immediate and constant way we connect with others. It is the bridge between our inner world and theirs. We use it to share ideas, to express love, to conduct business, to build communities. But like any powerful tool, it can be used to build or to destroy. A word can start a war or seal a peace treaty. A word can break a heart or heal a lifetime of wounds. The third factor on the Noble Eightfold Path, Samavaka or right speech, is the practice of learning to use this powerful tool with wisdom, skill, and compassion. It is the recognition that our words are not just fleeting sounds, but potent actions that create ripples of karma, shaping our reality and the reality of everyone we touch. In an age where our words can be amplified and broadcast across the globe in an instant, the practice of right speech has never been more urgent or more necessary. The practice of right speech is traditionally defined by what we choose to abstain from. There are 4 specific types of unskillful speech that we learn to recognize and abandon. The first of these is abstaining from false speech. At its most basic level, this means not telling lies. It is a commitment to truthfulness, to being a person whose word can be trusted. But it goes deeper than just avoiding outright falsehoods. It includes abstaining from exaggeration for self-promotion, from making promises we have no intention of keeping, from giving misleading information through omission, and from presenting a carefully curated, inauthentic version of ourselves to the world. The positive quality we cultivate here is integrity. It is the courage to be honest even when it is difficult, to be transparent, and to align our words with reality. A person who practices this aspect of right speech becomes a source of clarity and reliability in a world often clouded by deception. Their presence is calming because it is real. The second type of unskillful speech we abandon is divisive speech, sometimes translated as slanderous speech or gossip. This is any language used to set one person or group against another. It is speaking ill of someone behind their back, carrying tales from one person to another to stir up conflict, and using words to create suspicion, discord, and enmity. This kind of speech is a poison that sickens relationships and fractures communities. It is born from an intention of ill will or from a heedless desire for the small, toxic pleasure of feeling superior or in the know. In its place, we cultivate speech that promotes harmony. We practice speaking in ways that unite people, that encourage reconciliation, and that highlight the good qualities in others. If we cannot say something to bring people together, we learn the wisdom of saying nothing at all. This practice transforms us from agents of discord into agents of peace, mending the very fabric of our social world with words of kindness and understanding. The third form is abstaining from harsh speech. This includes any words intended to cause pain, insults, curses, yelling in anger, verbal abuse, belittling comments, and sarcasm that carries a sting. Harsh speech is a form of violence. It wounds the heart and mind of the other person, and it simultaneously pollutes our own mind with the poison of aggression. The sound of our own angry voice is as harmful to us as it is to the person we are shouting at. The antidote we cultivate is gentle speech. This is the practice of speaking to others with kindness, courtesy, and respect, even when we disagree. It is speech that is, as the Buddha said, pleasing to the ear and endearing. It soothes, comforts, and reassures. It has the power to de-escalate conflict and create a space of emotional safety where genuine communication can happen. Learning to speak gently is learning to handle others and ourselves with care. The fourth and final type of unskillful speech to abandon is idle chatter. This may seem less serious than lying or yelling, but it is subtly corrosive to the mind. Idle chatter is pointless talk, meaningless gossip, and conversation that serves no real purpose other than to fill silence and agitate the mind. It is speech that lacks mindfulness. It scatters our mental energy, distracts us from what is important, and can often lead us unintentionally into the other forms of wrong speech. The practice here is to cultivate purposeful speech. It is to ask ourselves, is what I am about to say true? Is it kind? Is it necessary? Is this the right time to say it? If the answer to any of these is no, we can practice what is sometimes called noble silence. Noble silence is not an awkward or empty quiet, but a rich, mindful presence. It is the wisdom of knowing that not every thought needs to be spoken, and that sometimes the greatest gift we can give another person is the space of our quiet, attentive listening. Nowhere are these principles more relevant than in our digital lives. The internet has become a global courtyard where these four forms of wrong speech run rampant. False speech propagates as misinformation and fake news, spreading faster than any truth. Carefully curated social media profiles become a form of institutionalized dishonesty, presenting lives devoid of struggle or flaw. Divisive speech is the very engine of online polarization, where algorithms feed us content that confirms our biases, and anonymous comment sections become battlegrounds of slander and us versus them rhetoric. Harsh speech is normalized in the form of cyberbullying and public shaming, where the screen creates a dehumanizing distance that allows for a level of cruelty few would express face to face. And idle chatter has become an endless scroll, a constant stream of trivial information that fragments our attention and depletes our mental and emotional resources. The practice of right speech online is a radical act of sanity. It is the mindful choice to pause before we type. It is to apply the four questions: is this post true? Is this comment kind? Is this share helpful? Is this really necessary? It is the practice of right-clicking, the wisdom to refrain from adding our voice to the cacophony, to refuse to be a conduit for outrage and division. There is a powerful old story that illustrates the inescapable consequence of our words. A man in a village went about spreading a malicious rumor about the local sage. A few days later, overcome with guilt, he went to the sage to repent and ask for forgiveness. "I will forgive you," the sage said, "but on one condition. You must go home, take a feather pillow, climb to the highest hill in the village, cut the pillow open, and shake all the feathers out into the wind." The man, though puzzled, was relieved at the simple task and quickly did as he was told. He returned to the sage and said, "I have done it." The sage then looked at him and said, "Now for the second part of your penance. Go back and gather every single feather." The man's face fell. "But that's impossible," he cried. "The wind has scattered them everywhere. I can never get them all back." The sage nodded slowly. "So it is," he said, "with your words. They are spoken as easily as these feathers were released, but you can never gather them all back again. This story is 1,000 times more potent in our digital world. A single careless tweet, a thoughtless post, can be screenshotted and shared across the globe in seconds, preserved forever on servers, impossible to ever fully retract. Our words have a permanence and a reach we can barely comprehend, and so our responsibility for them must be equally profound. Finally, the practice of right speech is not only about what we transmit, it is also about how we receive. The most profound form of kind speech is often no speech at all, but rather the practice of deep, compassionate listening. This is not the common form of listening where we are simply waiting for our turn to speak, formulating our rebuttal in our minds while the other person talks. Deep listening is an active meditation. We listen with only one purpose: to offer the other person a space to be heard, to allow them to empty their heart, and to help them suffer less. We listen without judging, without interrupting, without needing to fix anything. We offer the gift of our full, unwavering, compassionate presence. In doing so, we give the other person a chance to hear themselves, to find clarity in their own confusion, and to feel the profound healing of being truly seen and understood. This, too, is right speech. It is making our very presence a sanctuary for others. Through this practice, our words cease to be weapons of harm or tools of the ego. They become instruments of truth, harmony, and healing. We learn that our speech is a powerful form of action, an expression of our deepest intentions that has a direct and immediate impact on the world. This understanding that our expressions create our reality naturally leads us to consider not just our words, but all of our physical behaviors. It opens the door to the next facet of the path, which asks us to bring this same mindfulness and compassion to everything we do. This is the practice of right action. Our journey along the path has brought us from the inner world of view and intention to the first outward expression of our practice, our speech. We have seen how words can be weapons or balms, how they can create division or foster harmony, but our words, as powerful as they are only one form of our engagement with the world. The practice of embodying our inner wisdom must extend to all of our physical behaviors. This brings us to the fourth factor of the path, samma kammanta, or right action. If right speech is the art of making our communication a source of peace, right action is the art of making our physical presence in the world a source of safety, trust, and well-being. It is the practice of aligning our deeds with our deepest intentions of harmlessness and compassion, ensuring that the way we move through our lives does not contribute to the suffering of others or ourselves. Right action is where our ethics take form, where our inner transformation becomes a visible reality. The traditional framework for right action is a set of 5 guiding principles, often known as the 5 precepts. It is crucial to approach these not as rigid commandments handed down from on high, but as personal, voluntary training vows. The language used is not, "thou shalt not," but rather, "I undertake the training to abstain from." This phrasing is deeply significant. It frames ethics not as a matter of obedience to an external authority, but as a personal commitment to a path of self-purification and skillfulness. These precepts are a moral compass, a set of guidelines we use to navigate the complex situations of our lives with grace and integrity. The first of these trainings is to abstain from taking life. On its most obvious level, this is a commitment not to kill other human beings, but its spirit extends much further. It is the cultivation of an attitude of nonviolence, or ahimsa, and a deep reverence for all of existence. It invites us to consider our impact on all living creatures, to minimize the harm we cause to animals and to the natural world that sustains us all. It is a recognition that all beings share a fundamental desire to live and to avoid pain. When we practice this precept, we are consciously stepping out of the cycle of violence that causes so much suffering in the world. We become a protector of life, a safe harbor, and our presence fosters security rather than fear. The second training is to abstain from taking what is not given. This is the precept of not stealing. Again, the principle goes far beyond simply refraining from shoplifting or burglary. It means abstaining from any form of dishonest gain. This includes taking advantage of others in business deals, exploiting a situation for personal profit at someone else's expense, misusing company resources, or taking credit for work that is not our own. It is a commitment to honesty and transparency in all of our dealings. The positive virtue we cultivate in its place is generosity, or dana. We practice not only by refraining from taking, but by actively looking for opportunities to give, whether it is our time, our energy, our resources, or simply our kind attention. This practice frees the heart from the constriction of greed and fosters a sense of abundance and joyful connection with others. The third training is to abstain from sexual misconduct. This precept is often misunderstood in the modern world as a puritanical rejection of sexuality. This is not its purpose. Instead, it is a commitment to bring mindfulness, respect, and kindness into our sexual relationships. It is the training to avoid any sexual behavior that causes harm either to ourselves or to others. This includes any form of exploitation, coercion, or deception. It means honoring the commitments we have made to our partners and not engaging in actions that would betray their trust. It is about ensuring that our sexuality is an expression of genuine connection, intimacy, and care, rather than a tool for the gratification of selfish craving. By practicing this precept, we protect the hearts of others and ourselves from the profound pain that can come from the misuse of this powerful and intimate energy. The fourth training is to abstain from false speech. We have already explored this in depth as right speech, but its inclusion here as one of the 5 precepts is a powerful reminder of how interconnected the path factors are. Our speech is a form of action. The commitment to truthfulness is a cornerstone of all ethical conduct. It underscores that our integrity in word and in deed are inseparable. The fifth and final training is to abstain from intoxicants that cause heedlessness. This refers to alcohol, recreational drugs, and any substance that clouds the mind and diminishes our mindfulness. The point here is not one of arbitrary prohibition, but of deep practicality. The entire path of liberation depends on our ability to see clearly and to be present with our experience. Intoxicants, by their very nature, do the opposite. They create a fog, they encourage recklessness, and they are often used as a way to numb ourselves and escape from the realities of our life that we find difficult. The practice of this precept is a commitment to facing life with a clear and sober mind. In a broader sense, we can see this as a training to abstain from any form of mindless consumption we use to escape, whether it's binge-watching television for hours, becoming addicted to video games, or endlessly scrolling through social media. It is a commitment to being present for our own life. It is vital to understand that right action is not merely a passive list of things to avoid. That is only half of the practice. The other, more joyful half, is the active cultivation of wholesome and beneficial actions. It is not enough to simply refrain from pushing someone into the water. An engaged compassion would lead us to actively extend a hand to help someone who is struggling to stay afloat. So, alongside abstaining from harm, we actively practice helpfulness. We look for opportunities to protect life, to offer our support, to practice generosity, to bring kindness and care into all of our interactions. This proactive dimension turns our ethical life from a sterile avoidance of badness into a vibrant, creative expression of goodness. The question then becomes, how do we bring this practice into the fabric of our everyday lives? The late Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh offered a beautiful and profound teaching on this. He spoke of turning mundane chores into sacred acts of meditation. He encouraged his students to practice washing the dishes to wash the dishes. This means that when you are washing the dishes, you are not thinking about the cup of tea you will have afterwards or rushing to get the task over with. You are fully present with the act of washing. You feel the warmth of the water, you see the bubbles of the soap, you hear the sound of the plates touching. The goal is not simply to have clean dishes. The goal is to be fully alive and awake during the time you are washing them. The dishes are not an obstacle. They are the very vehicle for your mindfulness. This same principle can be applied to everything. We can walk just to walk, feeling the contact of our feet on the ground. We can drink our tea just to drink our tea, fully aware of the warmth, the aroma, the taste. When we bring this quality of full attention to our actions, every act becomes right action. The way we close a door, the way we place a book on a shelf, the way we drive our car in traffic, all of it becomes an opportunity to practice. An action performed with frustration and haste is an unskillful action. The exact same action performed with mindfulness and care is right action. Every action, no matter how small or seemingly insignificant, is a seed. As we move through our day, we are constantly planting seeds in the garden of our own consciousness and in the world around us. An act of impatience plants a seed of agitation. An act of generosity plants a seed of joy. An act of mindfulness plants a seed of peace. Over time, the seeds we plant determine the landscape of our mind and the quality of our life. Right action is the practice of consciously and diligently tending this garden, uprooting the weeds of unskillful behavior and nurturing the beautiful flowers of compassionate and mindful living. It is the way we make our body, our very physical form, an instrument of peace in the world. As we consider our daily actions, we must acknowledge that for most of us, a vast portion of our waking life is dedicated to our work, our profession, our career. The actions we perform to earn a living make up a huge part of our karmic footprint. This naturally raises a crucial question. How can we ensure that the way we sustain ourselves is in harmony with our path of practice? How can we make our work a part of our spiritual life rather than something separate from it? This inquiry leads us directly to the fifth factor of the path, a deep exploration of what it means to earn a right livelihood. The path has led us from the inner landscape of our mind, through the gateway of our words, and into the wide open field of our physical actions. We have learned to see right action as the practice of making our very presence a source of safety and well-being in the world. Now, we must turn our attention to the single activity that occupies the largest portion of our waking lives, the domain where our actions have a sustained and significant impact, our work. For most of us, our profession is more than just a set of tasks. It is our primary contribution to society, the means by which we sustain ourselves and our families, and a defining element of our identity. It is therefore essential that this enormous part of our life be brought into harmony with our spiritual path. This is the purpose of the fifth factor, sama ajiva, or right livelihood. It is the practice of integrating our deepest values into our economic life, transforming our work from a source of stress or a mere necessity into a meaningful expression of our practice. At its most fundamental level, right livelihood is defined as earning a living in a way that does not bring harm to oneself or to other beings. It is the application of the principles of right action to the realm of commerce and profession. The Buddha, with his profound understanding of how societal structures can create suffering, specifically pointed to 5 kinds of trade that should be avoided by anyone wishing to walk this path. These are not arbitrary rules, but clear-eyed observations of industries that are fundamentally based on causing harm. The first is business in weapons, any trade involved in the creation or sale of instruments designed for violence and destruction. The second is business in living beings, which in the Buddhist time referred to the slave trade and animal trading for slaughter, and today can be seen to include human trafficking and any form of commerce that exploits and commodifies human or animal life. The third is business in meat, the industry based on the large-scale breeding and killing of animals. The fourth is business in intoxicants, the production and sale of substances that cloud the mind and lead to heedlessness. And the fifth is business in poisons, any trade that creates or distributes substances known to kill or harm. Looking at this list, we can see the underlying principle is a radical commitment to harmlessness. The purpose is not to create a rigid list of good and bad jobs, but to provide a clear ethical filter through which we can examine our own professional life. We are invited to ask ourselves the searching questions: does my work, directly or indirectly, contribute to violence, exploitation, suffering, or a loss of mindfulness in the world? Is the product or service I provide genuinely beneficial, or does it prey on the weaknesses and cravings of others? This initial step of right livelihood is a powerful practice of ethical reflection, ensuring that the foundation of our material life is not built upon the suffering of any living being. However, for most of us, our work does not fall into these clearly defined harmful categories. We may be teachers, artists, programmers, accountants, doctors, or tradespeople. For us, the practice of right livelihood moves beyond simple avoidance and blossoms into a proactive cultivation of meaning and mindfulness within our chosen field. This is where the true art of the practice lies. It is about transforming the how and the why of our work, regardless of the what. Imagine a carpenter. One carpenter may work grudgingly, seeing the wood as a stubborn obstacle and the work as a tedious means to a paycheck. His actions are hurried, his mind is elsewhere, and the resulting table is functional but lifeless. Another carpenter approaches the same task with a different spirit. He sees the unique grain in each piece of wood. He feels the texture under his hands. His attention is fully present with the movement of the saw and the strike of the hammer. He is not just making a table, he is engaged in a meditative dialogue between himself, his tools, and the wood. His work is a practice of mindfulness, and the resulting table is not only functional, but imbued with a quality of care and integrity. Both carpenters earn a living, but only one is practicing right livelihood. This same principle can be applied to any ethical profession. A teacher can see their job as simply conveying information, or they can hold the intention of nurturing young minds and awakening curiosity. An office worker can see their tasks as a series of boring obligations, or they can see their role as supporting a team, contributing to a larger goal, and creating an atmosphere of kindness and efficiency. A chef can cook merely to feed people, or they can cook with the intention of nourishing them, body and spirit. The shift is internal. It is a reframing of our work as a form of service, as our unique contribution to the world. We begin to ask not just, what can I get from this job, but also, what can I give? How can my work alleviate suffering and increase well-being? When we hold this intention, even the most mundane tasks become imbued with a sense of purpose. Of course, we live in a complex world, and the choices are not always so clear. Many people find themselves in situations where their work is not perfectly aligned with their values. Perhaps the company they work for has questionable environmental practices, or the culture is one of intense pressure and competition. The path of practice does not demand that we make impulsive, idealistic decisions that could jeopardize our family's well-being. The path is a gradual one, a middle way. The key is to bring mindful awareness and ethical intention to the situation as it is. Can you be a force for positive change from within? Can you perform your specific duties with the highest degree of integrity, kindness, and mindfulness, creating a small island of sanity in a chaotic environment? Can you use the resources your job provides to support wholesome causes outside of work? The practice is not about achieving a perfect, stainless career. It is about the constant, skillful effort to reduce harm and increase benefit, starting from exactly where we are. It is a practice of engagement with reality, not a flight into fantasy. Furthermore, we can learn to see our workplace not as an obstacle to our spiritual practice, but as a fertile ground for it. The challenges of our job become our greatest teachers. A difficult colleague or demanding boss becomes an opportunity to practice patience and compassion. A high-pressure deadline becomes a training ground for staying mindful and centered amid stress. An unexpected failure becomes a lesson in letting go and resilience. A moment of success becomes a chance to observe the ego and practice non-attachment. When we adopt this perspective, the artificial split between our work life and our spiritual life dissolves. Every email we send, every meeting we attend, every task we complete becomes a part of our path. Our livelihood is no longer separate from our life. It is the very arena in which our life unfolds and our practice deepens. With right livelihood, we complete the great triad of ethical conduct, or sila. Right speech, right action, and right livelihood form a comprehensive and integrated ethical guide for living in the world. They are the ways we translate our inner clarity into outer harmony. They are how we ensure that our journey towards our own liberation does not happen at the expense of anyone else. They create a foundation of wholesomeness and integrity upon which the entire spiritual path can be built. But to walk this ethical path consistently, to maintain our balance when faced with temptation, frustration, and exhaustion, requires more than just good intentions. It requires a strong, stable, and resilient mind. Our inner resources must be developed. Our mental and emotional energy must be skillfully harnessed. This recognition leads us from the pillar of ethical conduct to the third and final division of the Noble Eightfold Path, the profound training of the mind itself, known as samadhi. And this inner cultivation begins with the engine that drives the entire journey forward, the practice of right effort. We stand now on a solid ground of ethical integrity. The practices of right speech, right action, and right livelihood have laid a foundation for a life of harmlessness and harmony. We have learned to shape our conduct in the world so that it becomes a source of peace, not of conflict. This is a monumental achievement. Yet, anyone who has sincerely tried to live by these principles for even a single day knows the truth. It is not always easy. The old habits of mind impatience, greed, anger, and fear are strong. The pull of a reactive word, a selfish act, or a convenient compromise can be immense. To maintain our footing on this ethical ground, to consistently choose the skillful over the unskillful, requires more than just knowing what to do. It requires an inner strength, a reservoir of resilient energy. It requires a heart and mind that are trained, focused, and powerful. And so, the path now turns inward, from the outer world of conduct to the inner world of the mind itself. We begin the third great training, samadhi or mental discipline, with the very force that makes all progress possible. This is the sixth factor of the path, samavayama or right effort. When we hear the word effort in our modern productivity-obsessed culture, our minds often conjure images of struggle, strain, and stress. We think of hustling, of grinding, of forcing our way towards a goal through sheer willpower. This is a profound misunderstanding of the nature of right effort. Right effort is not about gritting your teeth and tensing your muscles. It is not about violence against the mind. It is better understood as right energy or wise diligence. It is the joyful, persistent, and skillful application of energy, like a steady and gentle river flowing towards the sea, not a frantic flood that destroys everything in its path. It is the energy of a marathon runner, not a 100-meter sprinter. The practice of right effort is the art of learning how to cultivate and sustain this wholesome energy for the long journey of awakening. Once again, the beautiful metaphor of the lute string guides us. If our effort is too slack, too weak, we fall into laziness, complacency, and procrastination. We know what we should do, but we just can't seem to muster the energy to do it. The mind becomes dull and sinks into a state of inertia. But if our effort is too tight, too forceful, we fall into the opposite extreme of restlessness and agitation. We become anxious, tense, and obsessive about our practice. We try too hard, and our mind becomes like a churning sea, unable to find stillness or clarity. Right effort is the middle way. It is learning to tune the string of our energy so that it is perfectly balanced, alert but relaxed, diligent but not strained, persistent but not aggressive. It is from this state of balanced energy that all genuine progress on the path is made. The Buddha did not leave this practice as a vague instruction to try hard. He gave a beautifully clear and practical framework for applying this energy, a four-part strategy for becoming a skillful gardener of the mind. This is often called the four great efforts, and they provide a complete manual for inner cultivation. The first right effort is the effort to prevent the arising of unwholesome states that have not yet arisen. This is the practice of wise prevention. The skillful gardener does not wait for his garden to be overrun with weeds and then spend all his time frantically pulling them out. He is vigilant. He prepares the soil, puts up a fence to keep out pests, and carefully watches for the first sign of any invasive species. In the same way, we learn to guard the senses. We become mindful of what we allow into our minds through our eyes, our ears, and our thoughts. We recognize that consuming a constant diet of violent media, angry news, or mindless gossip is like deliberately planting weed seeds in our garden. It will inevitably lead to the growth of anger, fear, and craving. The effort to prevent is the wise choice to turn away from these sources, to curate our mental environment, and to protect our mind from unskillful influences before they can take root. The second right effort is the effort to abandon unwholesome states that have already arisen. Despite our best preventive efforts, weeds will still sprout. This is inevitable. An angry thought flashes into the mind. A wave of jealousy washes over us. A powerful craving asserts itself. This is not a sign of failure. It is simply the nature of the untrained mind. The unskillful response is either to indulge the weed tube, water it with our attention, feeding the anger with more angry thoughts, or to try to violently suppress it, which often only makes it stronger. The skillful gardener does neither. He simply sees the weed, recognizes it for what it is without judgment, and then gently but firmly uproots it. This is the practice of letting go. We see the anger. We acknowledge its presence. Anger is herein, then we skillfully withdraw our energy from it. We might turn our attention to the breath, or deliberately cultivate a thought of kindness to counteract it. We learn not to feed the wolf of hatred, as the old story goes. This is not repression. It is a conscious and wise redirection of our mental energy. The third right effort is the effort to cultivate wholesome states that have not yet arisen. A garden is not defined merely by an absence of weeds. It becomes beautiful and nourishing when we actively plant flowers and vegetables. It is not enough to simply avoid the negative. We must actively cultivate the positive. This is the joyful side of the practice. We make a conscious effort to plant the seeds of kindness, compassion, generosity, and gratitude in our minds. We might set an intention at the beginning of the day. Today, I will look for opportunities to be kind. We might read inspiring texts, reflect on the goodness of others, or practice meditations on loving kindness. We are not waiting for these positive states to happen by accident. We are actively creating the conditions for them to grow. This is the practice of brightening the mind, of making it a fertile ground for joy and peace. The fourth right effort is the effort to maintain and perfect wholesome states that have already arisen. When a beautiful flower finally blooms in our garden, our work is not over. We must continue to water it, give it sunlight, and protect it so that it can flourish and bear fruit. Similarly, when a moment of peace, clarity, or joy arises in our minds, we learn to cherish and sustain it. If, during meditation, our mind becomes calm and focused, we don't just move on to the next thing. We allow ourselves to rest in that calmness, to savor it, to understand what conditions brought it about. This is the effort of nurturing our progress. It is the positive reinforcement that strengthens wholesome mental habits, making it more likely that these states of peace will arise again in the future. These four efforts, working together, form a complete and dynamic system for mental transformation. They are the engine that drives the entire vehicle of the path forward. Without this constant, gentle, and skillful application of energy, our ethical conduct becomes dry and difficult, and our wisdom remains theoretical. Right effort provides the power to overcome laziness, the resilience to endure challenges, and the joyful momentum that makes the path a process of discovery rather than a chore. It is the conscious decision to be the cause of our own awakening, to take an active role in the purification of our own heart. As we cultivate this balanced, wise energy, we begin to clear the inner landscape. The weeds of obsessive thinking are gradually removed, the noise of mental chatter begins to quiet down, and the garden of the mind becomes a more ordered and peaceful place. The energy that was once wasted in inner conflict, worry, and craving is now liberated and available. But energy alone is not enough. A powerful engine in a car is useless without a driver who is paying attention to the road. Now that we have the energy and the space, we need a faculty that can see with precision what is actually happening in the garden from moment to moment. We need a clear, steady, and non-judgmental awareness to guide our efforts. This powerful, focused awareness, the very heart of meditative practice, is the next factor of the path. It is the practice of right mindfulness. With the engine of right effort, we have awakened a new energy within us, a wise and balanced diligence to cultivate the beautiful and release the harmful in our own minds. We have become active gardeners of our inner world. But a gardener, no matter how energetic, cannot work in the dark. To know which plant is a weed and which is a flower, to know when to water and when to prune, requires light. It requires a clear, unwavering, and intimate awareness of the garden itself. The most powerful energy is useless if it is not guided by clear seeing. This guiding light, this faculty of focused awareness that illuminates our inner and outer worlds, is the seventh factor of the path. It is the very heart of all meditative practice, a skill that transforms every moment of our life into an opportunity for awakening. It is samasati, or right mindfulness. If there is one word from the Buddhist tradition that has seeped into the consciousness of the modern world, it is mindfulness. We hear it spoken of in hospitals, in corporate boardrooms, in schools, and in therapy offices. Its benefits for reducing stress and improving focus are now well documented by science. But to truly understand its power, we must look beyond its modern applications and grasp its profound original meaning. Right mindfulness is not simply about paying attention, nor is it a technique for relaxation. At its core, right mindfulness is the practice of seeing reality as it is in the present moment, without the distorting filters of our judgments, our stories, and our fears. It is a clear, non-judgmental, and compassionate awareness of life as it unfolds, moment by moment by moment. The classic definition breaks this down into four key elements: paying attention, on purpose, in the present moment, and non-judgmentally. Let us unpack this. Paying attention on purpose means that mindfulness is a conscious, deliberate act. It is not the scattered, accidental attention we normally give to things. We are choosing to direct the spotlight of our awareness to a specific experience. In the present moment is the radical core of the practice. Our minds are perpetually time-traveling. We live our lives lost in regret about the past or consumed by anxiety about the future. We are almost never fully here, in the only moment we ever truly have, which is now. Mindfulness is the practice of coming home to the present, and most importantly, non-judgmentally. This is perhaps the most difficult and the most healing aspect. Our minds are relentless commentary machines. We instantly label every experience. This is good, that is bad. I like this. I hate that. This is right. That is wrong. This constant judgment creates a layer of friction and stress between ourselves and our lives. Mindfulness is the practice of dropping this commentary. It is allowing an experience, a thought, a feeling, a sound to simply be what it is, without needing to label it, fix it, or push it away. This non-judgmental quality is a profound act of kindness and acceptance towards our own experience. To begin this practice, we need an anchor, something to tether our wandering mind to the present moment. The most universal and accessible anchor is the breath. The breath is a miracle of simplicity. It is always with us, from the moment we are born to the moment we die. It is always happening now. You cannot breathe in the past or in the future, and it is neutral, a simple, rhythmic process that requires no belief. The practice can be this simple: finding a comfortable place to sit and bringing your attention to the physical sensation of the breath as it enters and leaves your body. Feeling the slight coolness at the tip of the nose on the in-breath, the gentle warmth on the out-breath, feeling the subtle rise and fall of the abdomen. That is all. Your only job is to be aware of this one simple, present reality. Inevitably, within a few seconds, the mind will wander. A thought about an email you need to send will arise. A memory will surface. A plan for dinner will intrude. This is not a failure. This is not a mistake. This is simply what minds do. The moment you realize your mind has wandered is a moment of perfect mindfulness, and the practice itself is in what you do next. Without any scolding or frustration, you gently acknowledge where the mind went, thinking, and then, with great kindness, you guide your attention back to the sensation of the breath. This is the sacred movement of the practice. Lost in thought, coming home to the breath, lost again, and coming home again, over and over. Each time you return, you are strengthening the muscle of mindfulness. You are training your mind to be less reactive and more present, one gentle return at a time. As this muscle grows stronger, the practice of mindfulness expands beyond the breath to encompass the whole of our experience. The Buddha laid out a comprehensive training map for this, known as the 4 foundations of mindfulness. These are 4 great domains of reality to which we can apply our clear awareness. The first is mindfulness of the body. This starts with the breath, but it includes all bodily sensations. It is the practice of inhabiting our bodies fully. We can feel the sensation of our feet on the floor as we walk, transforming a simple walk into a profound meditation. We can be mindful of our posture as we sit or stand. We become aware of the subtle energies in the body, the warmth, the tingling, the tightness without judging them. This practice pulls us out of the endless loops of abstract thought and grounds us in the tangible reality of the here and now. The second foundation is mindfulness of feelings or sensations. This is the practice of observing the constant stream of pleasant, unpleasant, and neutral feelings that arise and pass away. We are not interested in the story about the feeling, why it's there, who caused it. We are interested in the raw, physical sensation of the feeling itself. We notice an unpleasant feeling of anxiety arise in the chest. Instead of being swept away by it, we just observe it. Here is this tight, vibrating energy. We watch it with a curious, kind attention, and we notice that, like a cloud, it eventually shifts and passes away. This practice shows us the impermanent nature of our feelings and helps us to stop being so controlled by our knee-jerk reactions to pleasure and pain. The third foundation is mindfulness of the mind itself, of consciousness. Here, we turn the spotlight of awareness back on the mind that is doing the knowing. We simply notice the quality of the mind in this moment. Is the mind happy or sad? Is it scattered or focused? Is it angry or peaceful? We are not trying to change the state of mind, but simply to recognize it. The mind is angry right now. The mind is calm right now. This simple act of recognition creates a crucial space. We are no longer lost in the anger. We are the calm awareness that sees the anger. This space is freedom. The fourth and most subtle foundation is mindfulness of mental objects, or the contents of the mind. This is observing the very patterns of thought and perception as they arise. We notice the arising of a desire, and instead of being consumed by it, we see it clearly. This is desire. We see a doubt surface, and we simply know doubt is present. We are watching the very process of reality being constructed in our minds, and in that watching, we begin to disentangle ourselves from it. There is a powerful image for the essence of mindfulness, that of a person walking a tightrope across a vast canyon. For this person, There can be no thought of the past. The step they took a moment ago is gone and irrelevant. There can be no thought of the future. Worrying about reaching the other side will only cause them to tremble and fall. All of their being, all of their attention must be poured into the single present reality of this one step. The feeling of the rope under their foot, the subtle shifts of balance in their body, the sensation of the air on their skin, their life depends entirely on their ability to be fully present, right here, right now. Our life is this tightrope walk. The past is a memory, the future a fantasy. The only place we are ever truly alive is in the present moment. Mindfulness is the art of balance, the skill of bringing our full attention to this one precious step we are taking right now. As we cultivate this steady, present moment awareness, something remarkable begins to happen. The inner chaos begins to subside. The mind, which was once like a stormy ocean, becomes calmer and clearer. The energy that was previously scattered in 1,000 different directions by worry and distraction becomes gathered and unified. This calm, clear, and unified mind is no longer easily disturbed. It becomes stable, strong, and lucid. And this stable, unwavering, and sustained mindfulness naturally develops into the eighth and final factor of the path. It becomes the deep, penetrating focus known as right concentration. Through the steady cultivation of right effort, we have gathered our energy. Through the gentle practice of right mindfulness, we have learned to be present, to anchor our awareness in the here and now, illuminating the landscape of our inner world. We have brought our scattered mind home. The question that naturally arises is, what happens next? What is the result of this patient gathering of energy, this continuous returning to the present moment? When the diffuse rays of sunlight that have been scattered across the sky are gathered by a lens and focused onto a single point, they create a beam of immense power and intensity. In the same way, when the scattered energy of our mind, gathered by mindfulness, is brought to rest on a single object of attention, it develops an entirely new quality. It becomes unshakable, unified, and brilliantly clear. This state of profound mental unification is the eighth and final factor of the path. It is the culmination of our mental training, the power of deep stillness known as sama samadhi, or right concentration. It is vital to begin by clearing away a common misunderstanding. When we think of deep concentration, we might imagine a dull, trance-like state, a blank emptiness where all thought ceases. We might think of it as an escape, a way of spacing out from the world. Right concentration is the absolute opposite of this. It is not a state of emptiness, but one of profound fullness of mind that is so completely filled with its object of attention that there is no room for anything else. It is not a dull or sleepy state. It is a mind that is highly energized, alert, radiant, and wakeful. And it is not an escape from reality. It is the creation of a mental instrument so powerful and so precise that it can penetrate the surface of reality and see into its very nature. It is the pinnacle of mental fitness, a mind operating at its highest potential for clarity and insight. Mindfulness and concentration are the two wings of the bird of meditation. They are inseparable partners, each supporting and strengthening the other. Mindfulness has a broad, open, and receptive quality. It is like a gentle, wide-beamed lamp, illuminating an entire room, aware of everything within it. The furniture, the shadows, the sounds. It keeps the practice grounded and balanced. Concentration, on the other hand, is focused and penetrating. It takes the light gathered by the lamp of mindfulness and focuses it into a single, powerful laser beam, capable of examining the smallest details with precision. The practice begins with mindfulness. We are aware of the breath, and we are also aware when the mind wanders away. As our mindfulness becomes more continuous, our attention stays with the breath for longer and longer periods. The mind wanders less. This sustained mindfulness naturally evolves into concentration. The mind settles, it rests with the breath, it becomes one with the breath. Mindfulness gathers the energy, and concentration focuses it. Without mindfulness, concentration can become rigid and dry. Without concentration, mindfulness lacks the power to see deeply. Together, they create a mind that is both spacious and sharp, both stable and penetrating. There is a simple, beautiful analogy for this process: a glass of water filled with mud. If you shake the glass, the water becomes cloudy and opaque. You cannot see through it. This is the state of our ordinary, untrained, mind agitated by the winds of desire and fear, clouded by the mud of worry, planning, and restless thoughts. If you try to force the mud to the bottom of the glass by jabbing at it or shaking it more, you only make the water murkier. This is the result of unskillful, forceful effort. The practice of concentration is simply to place the glass on a steady surface and let it be still. This stillness is the sustained, gentle attention on a single object, like the breath. As we allow the mind to rest in this way, without agitation, a natural process unfolds. The particles of mud, our distracting thoughts and emotional hindrances, slowly begin to settle. They are not destroyed, but they lose their power to cloud our vision. As the mud settles, the water becomes progressively clearer, more transparent, and more luminous. This clear water is the concentrated mind. It is a mind that is no longer agitated by inner turmoil, a mind that can now reflect reality perfectly, just as it is. As the mind settles into these deeper states of concentration, a remarkable series of experiences can begin to unfold. These are not the goal of the practice, but rather its natural fruits, signs that the mind is becoming profoundly purified. In the Buddhist teachings, these are known as the jhanas, or states of meditative absorption. They are states of profound bliss and peace that are entirely independent of the outer world. As concentration deepens, powerful feelings of piti, or rapturous joy, can arise, flooding the body and mind with an energizing delight. This joy then mellows into a state of deep, sustained happiness and contentment known as sukha. The mind becomes unified, or one-pointed, ekagata, so absorbed in its object that the distinction between the observer and the observed begins to dissolve. And from this bliss, an even deeper state of profound peace and balance can emerge, a state of unshakable equanimity, or upekkha. To experience these states is to realize a profound truth, that the deepest and most satisfying happiness is not something we can get from the outside world. It is an innate quality of the mind itself, a treasure hidden within us that is uncovered when the mud of agitation is allowed to settle. It is a taste of the freedom of nirvana. But as blissful and healing as these states are, they are not the final goal. They are a resting place, a sharpening of the tool. The ultimate purpose of developing such a powerful, stable, and lucid mind is to use it for the work of liberation. This is the most crucial point. Right concentration creates the perfect instrument for insight, or vipassana. A scattered, agitated mind is like a blunt, rusty knife. It cannot cut through the tough skin of our ingrained ignorance. A concentrated mind, a mind in a state of samadhi, is like a razor-sharp, perfectly balanced sword. It is this sword of wisdom that we can now use to cut through our delusions. When this clear, stable, and powerful mind is turned towards the investigation of our own experience, it can see things that were previously invisible. It can see the truth of impermanence, anicca, not as a philosophical idea, but in the constant flicker of every thought and sensation. It can see the truth of unsatisfactoriness, dukkha, in the very mechanism of craving, and it can see the profound truth of no self, anatta, by directly observing that there is no fixed, solid controller behind our experiences, only an impersonal, flowing process. This direct, experiential seeing is what shatters the chains of suffering. Right concentration forges the sword, and insight wields it. With the cultivation of right concentration, we have now arrived at the completion of our map. We have explored the three great trainings that comprise the Noble Eightfold Path: the guiding wisdom of right view and right intention, paññā; the foundation of a harmonious life through right speech, right action, and right livelihood, sila; and now the profound inner cultivation of right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration, samadhi. We have assembled a complete and perfect toolkit for the journey from confusion to clarity, from suffering to freedom. The map is in our hands, and the tools are at our disposal. The path is now no longer just a theory to be studied. It is a living practice to be undertaken. With the mind calmed, unified, and sharpened through concentration, we are now prepared to use this magnificent instrument to look deeply into the fundamental nature of our existence, to see things as they truly are. And our investigation begins with the most pervasive and undeniable truth of all, the great, relentless dance of change that governs everything. We begin our journey of insight by looking into the heart of impermanence. With the Noble Eightfold Path as our guide, we have calmed the mind, gathered our energy, and sharpened our awareness into a tool of penetrating clarity. We have forged the sword of samadhi. Now, the time has come to wield it. We turn this powerful, concentrated mind away from the task of self-improvement and towards the task of self-discovery, or more accurately, the discovery of reality itself. We begin to use this instrument to investigate the fundamental nature of our own existence. And the first, most unavoidable truth that this sharpened awareness reveals, the foundational insight upon which all other wisdom rests, is the universal law of anicca, or impermanence. It is the truth that everything, without exception, is in a constant, relentless state of flux. From the silent spinning of the galaxies to the fleeting thoughts that flicker through our minds, the entire universe is a majestic and unending dance of change. Nothing is static, nothing is permanent. The mountains that seem so solid and eternal are slowly being worn down by wind and rain. The great stars that illuminate our night sky are burning through their fuel, destined to one day collapse and die. The continents themselves drift upon a molten sea. On a more human scale, we see impermanence in the turning of the seasons, in the cycle of day and night. We see it in the life of a flower, which buds, blooms in breathtaking beauty, and then inevitably withers and returns to the soil. The river we look at today is not the same river we saw yesterday. New water is always flowing. The relationships in our lives evolve and shift. Cities rise and fall. Fortunes are made and lost. Our very bodies are a testament to this law. From the moment of our birth, our bodies are changing. Cells are constantly dying and being replaced. We grow from infancy to childhood, through adolescence to adulthood, and into old age. The face that looks back at us from the mirror today is not the same face from 10 years ago, nor will it be the same in 10 years to come. Our physical form is not a solid entity, but a flowing process. And nowhere is this truth more intimate and immediate than in the landscape of our own minds. Our thoughts, feelings, and moods are the most volatile and transient phenomena we know. A thought arises, captures our attention for a moment, and then vanishes, replaced by another. A feeling of joy can fill our heart, making the world seem bright and full of promise, only to be replaced an hour later by a wave of sadness or irritation. Our moods shift like the weather, from sunny and clear to cloudy and turbulent. We experience moments of brilliant clarity and moments of deep confusion. We feel love, anger, peace, anxiety, boredom, and excitement, all in a single day. None of these states is solid. None of them is permanent. They are like clouds passing through the vast sky of our awareness, appearing for a time and then dissolving. This is the undeniable, observable reality of our existence. Everything flows. Given that this is the fundamental nature of reality, why do we suffer? If change is the one constant, why is our life so often a struggle? The answer is simple and profound. The problem is not impermanence itself. The problem is our resistance to it. We suffer because we try to do the impossible. We try to build a permanent shelter on the constantly shifting sands of time. We desperately try to grasp onto things that are, by their very nature, ungraspable. When we experience a moment of happiness, a pleasant feeling, or a joyful success, our immediate instinct is to cling to it, to try and make it last forever. We want to freeze the beautiful moment, to hold on to the praise, to make the feeling of love a permanent possession. This clinging, this desperate attempt to stop the river from flowing, is a primary source of our anxiety. And when we experience something unpleasant, a difficult emotion, a painful situation, a losser instinct is to resist it, to push it away with all our might, forgetting that it too is impermanent. This aversion, this struggle against the unpleasant, only serves to amplify our pain. Our suffering is not caused by the fact that things change. It is caused by our deep-seated craving for them to be permanent. It is the friction generated between our desires and reality. But here is the great liberating secret of this teaching. Impermanence is not bad news. In fact, it is the very foundation of our hope. If things were permanent, then suffering would be permanent. If you were feeling sad, and that state were permanent, you would be sad forever. There would be no escape. But because of impermanence, we know that is not true. No state of suffering, no matter how intense, is forever. Pain, grief, heartbreak, anxiety, these are all clouds that will, in time, pass. This is the promise of healing. Furthermore, if things were permanent, then change and growth would be impossible. We would be stuck with our current habits, our current limitations, our current ignorance forever. The fact that everything changes means that transformation is possible. We can change. We can grow wiser, kinder, and more peaceful. The angry person does not have to be angry forever. The anxious mind does not have to be anxious forever. The path of awakening itself is only possible because of impermanence. It is the law that allows us to cultivate new habits and release old ones, to move from confusion to clarity. There is a timeless story of a powerful king who, despite all his wealth and success, found his mood swinging wildly between happiness and despair. He summoned a wise sage to his court and commanded him, "Make me a ring with a special inscription. It must have the power to make me sad when I am happy, and to make me happy when I am sad." The sage, after some thought, presented the king with a simple ring. Etched upon it were 4 simple words: "This too shall pass." The king was overjoyed. In his moments of greatest triumph, when he felt arrogant and invincible, he would look at the ring and be reminded of the fleeting nature of his glory, which brought him a sense of humility. And in his moments of deepest sorrow, when he felt defeated and hopeless, he would look at the ring and be reminded that his pain was not a permanent condition, which gave him the strength to endure. The wisdom of impermanence is this ring. It is a source of profound balance, offering us solace in our suffering and humility in our success. When we truly begin to understand and accept this law, our entire relationship with life begins to shift. We stop fighting against the current and learn to dance with the flow of existence. This understanding cultivates a deep sense of appreciation for the present moment. We begin to cherish our experiences precisely because we know they will not last forever. A conversation with a loved one, the taste of a delicious meal, the quiet beauty of a sunset, these moments become infinitely more precious when we are aware of their transient nature. We no longer take them for granted. We learn to be fully present for them, to savor them without clinging to them. This is the art of holding life with an open hand rather than a clenched fist. We learn to let go. We let go of our attachment to outcomes, our need for control, our insistence that life conform to our plans. In this letting go, we find an incredible sense of freedom and ease. We become more resilient, more adaptable, and more at peace with the natural unfolding of life. The deep, experiential insight into impermanence is the first great cut made by the sword of our concentrated mind. It begins to sever the very root of our clinging. But this profound realization inevitably leads to an even deeper question. As we observe this constant flux, as we watch our body changing, our feelings shifting, and our thoughts arising and passing away, a question emerges from the silence. Who is it that is watching all of this? If every component part of my being, me, body, my sensations, my perceptions, my thoughts, my consciousness is impermanent and in constant flow, where can I find a permanent, unchanging I? Is there a solid, continuous self at the center of this whirlwind of change? Or is the observer also part of the flow? This investigation into the nature of the self is the next step on our journey of insight, a step that leads to one of the most liberating and radical truths of the path, the discovery of anatta, or no self. With our minds sharpened and steadied, we have looked directly into the face of impermanence. We have seen that everything we once took to be solid or bodies, our thoughts, our feelings, the world around uses in a state of constant, unrelenting flow. This powerful insight shakes the very foundations of our ordinary reality. It forces us to ask the most profound question a human being can ask. If everything is changing, who is the I that experiences this change? If my body is not the same from one day to the next, if my thoughts are a fleeting parade, if my emotions are as fickle as the weather, then where can I locate a solid, continuous, and independent self? This fearless investigation into the nature of the self leads us to the second great mark of existence, the most radical and liberating teaching of the Buddha. It is the wisdom of anatta, or no self. Before we take a single step further, it is crucial to state clearly what anatta is not. Hearing the term no self, our minds, conditioned to fear annihilation, may recoil. It can sound cold, nihilistic, like a denial of our very existence. This is a complete misunderstanding. The teaching of no self does not claim that you do not exist. You are here, reading these words, breathing, thinking, feeling. The teaching is far more subtle and liberating. It does not deny our existence, it investigates its nature. It proposes that when we look for a separate, permanent, and unchanging self, a kind of core entity or soul that is the master of the mind-body experience, we simply cannot find one. What we find instead is not an entity, but a dynamic, interdependent process. The teaching of anatta is not about ceasing to exist. It is about ceasing to cling to a painful illusion. To guide this investigation, the Buddha offered a brilliant and practical map. He suggested that we look at our entire experience as being composed of 5 distinct categories, known as the 5 aggregates, or skandhas. If a self exists, he reasoned, it must be found in one of these 5 areas. First is the aggregate of form, or the physical body. Is this myself? We look closely. Our body is made of non-body elements: the food we ate, the water we drank, the air we breathe. It is constantly changing, aging, getting sick, and will one day perish. It is subject to conditions beyond our control. How can this impermanent collection of elements be a permanent, independent self? So we conclude, the body is not the self. Second is the aggregate of feeling. This includes all of our sensations, whether they are pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. Are we our feelings? A moment of happiness arises, and we might think, I am happy. But that feeling fades, replaced by boredom or sadness. Feelings are like fleeting guests, constantly coming and going. If we were our feelings, our self would be born and die 1,000 times a day. So we conclude, feelings are not the self. Third is the aggregate of perception. This is the faculty that recognizes, identifies, and labels our experience. It is the part of the mind that says tree, blue, sound of a bird. Are we our perceptions? We see that our perceptions are deeply conditioned by our past experiences, our language, our culture, and our present mood. 2 people can look at the same event and perceive it in completely different ways. Perception is not a clear window onto reality. It is a colored lens. How can this conditioned, unreliable faculty be our true self? So we conclude, perception is not the self. Fourth is the aggregate of mental formations. This is a vast and powerful category that includes all of our volitional activities. Our thoughts, ideas, opinions, beliefs, prejudices, desires, habits, and intentions. This is the part of our experience we most often identify with. We think, I am my thoughts, I am my beliefs. But when we look with a quiet mind, we see that thoughts are just mental events. They arise and pass away like clouds in the sky. Our opinions change, our beliefs evolve. We are not the author of our thoughts, we are the space in which they appear. How can this chaotic stream of mental activity be a stable, cohesive self? So we conclude, mental formations are not the self. Fifth and finally, there is the aggregate of consciousness. This is the raw faculty of knowing, the awareness that arises when our sense organs meet an object. Eye consciousness that knows sight, ear consciousness that knows sound, mind consciousness that knows thought. Surely this awareness must be the self? But we look closer still. We see that consciousness is not a monolithic entity. It is dependent. It arises only in relation to an object. There is no consciousness in and of itself. There is only consciousness of something. It is flickering on and off with every moment of experience, a rapid series of discrete moments of knowing. How can this dependent, flickering awareness be a permanent, independent self? And so we conclude, consciousness is not the self. We have looked through all 5 components of our being, and we have not found a self anywhere. This can be disorienting, like looking for the manager of a company and finding only a collection of interacting departments. To illustrate this, there is a famous dialogue between the Buddhist sage Nagasena and the Greek king Melinda. The king asks Nagasena his name. Nagasena replies that Nagasena is merely a designation, a name for a collection of parts, but that no permanent person can be found. The king, a clever debater, challenges him with an analogy. He points to his chariot and asks, "What is this chariot? Is it the wheels, the axle, the frame, the reins?" He demonstrates that the chariot is none of its individual parts. Nagasena agrees, and then masterfully turns the king's logic back on him. He points out that chariot is simply the conventional name we give to the functioning assembly of these parts. It is a useful label, but there is no ultimate, essential chariotness that exists apart from the components. He then concludes, in the same way, Nagasena is a conventional designation for the assembly of the 5 aggregates. The word self is a useful label, but if you look for a permanent entity behind the label, you will not find one. The problem then is not that we use the word I. The problem is that we mistake the label for a real solid thing. So what are we if not a solid self? We are a process. We are a river. A river has continuity. We can point to it and call it the Mississippi River, but it is never the same for 2 consecutive moments. New water is always flowing in, old water is always flowing out. We are just like this, a flowing, interdependent process of mind and body, a dynamic pattern of energy. There is continuity, but there is no permanence. This insight is not a cause for despair. It is the gateway to profound liberation. So much of our human suffering comes from the project of defending, maintaining, and gratifying this illusory sense of a separate self. We spend our lives in a state of low-grade anxiety, trying to protect our reputation, defending our opinions, polishing our self-image, and fearing personal insults. When we see, even for a moment, that the self we are trying so hard to protect is not a solid entity, a huge burden begins to lift. There is nothing to defend. The energy we once poured into this stressful and futile project is liberated for other purposes. Our fear of death diminishes because we see that there is no solid thing to be annihilated in the first place, only a process that will change form. Our capacity for resilience grows because we no longer take failure or criticism so personally. It is happening to a process, not to an essential me. Most beautifully, the insight into no self dissolves the painful illusion of separation. We see that our self is not separate from the universe, but is woven from it. We are made of sunlight, water, air, and the earth. We are made of the ideas, the kindness, and the struggles of our ancestors and our society. The hard, sharp line between me and you begins to soften. We see that your suffering is not fundamentally separate from my suffering. Your desire for happiness is not separate from my desire for happiness. When the fortress of the separate self begins to crumble, the heart naturally opens. The energy that was once used for self-defense is now free to manifest as compassion, as empathy, as a deep and abiding connection to all of life. This is not a moral imperative. It is the natural consequence of seeing things as they truly are. When the I is no longer the center of the universe, there is room for everything else. This spacious, open heart is the perfect ground for cultivating the most beautiful qualities of which a human being is capable, the boundless states of loving, kindness, and compassion. With the deep insight into impermanence and no self, the solid ground beneath our feet begins to dissolve. We see that we are not fixed, separate entities, but flowing, interconnected processes, woven from the fabric of the universe itself. The hard walls of the ego, which we have spent a lifetime building and defending, begin to become transparent. A profound sense of release occurs. The energy that was once consumed by the endless, stressful project of self-preservation is now liberated. But this liberated energy needs a direction. When a dam is opened, the water must flow somewhere. When the heart is opened by wisdom, its natural, unimpeded expression is a boundless, radiant warmth. It is a love that is not possessive, not conditional, not limited by preference. This is the practice of metta, or loving kindness, the first of the four great sublime states of the heart. It is essential to understand that metta is radically different from our ordinary, conventional ideas of love. The love we see in movies and read about in novels is often a transactional, conditional affair. It is a love of attachment. We love someone because they make us feel good, because they fulfill our needs, because they reflect a positive image of ourselves. This kind of love is fragile. When the person changes, or when they no longer fulfill our needs, this love can easily turn to indifference, resentment, or sorrow. Metta is not this. Metta is not an emotion we fall into. It is an intention we cultivate. It is the sincere, selfless, and unconditional wish for the genuine happiness and well-being of all living beings, without exception. It is impartial, like the light of the sun, which shines equally on the beautiful flower and the humble weed, on the saint and the sinner. It asks for nothing in return. It does not depend on being liked. It is a steady, benevolent radiation of goodwill that flows from a heart that has understood its connection to all of life. This benevolent warmth is the direct and powerful antidote to the poisons of the mind. The states of anger, hatred, jealousy, and fear all arise from a mind that feels contracted, threatened, and separated. They are expressions of the ego's survival instinct. Metta works in the opposite way. It is an expansive state of mind. It is the softening of the heart, the dissolving of the inner armor we wear to protect ourselves. It is a physiological and psychological impossibility to hold both genuine metta and genuine hatred for someone in the mind at the same exact moment. One displaces the other. When you are truly wishing for someone's well-being, the energy of ill will cannot find a foothold. Practicing metta is like pouring cool, clear water onto the smoldering embers of resentment and fear. It doesn't fight the darkness. It simply fills the space with light, and the darkness naturally disappears. The cultivation of metta is a systematic training of the heart. The formal practice of metta meditation provides a beautiful structure for this. We begin by finding a quiet, comfortable position, allowing the mind and body to relax. The first recipient of our loving kindness, and often the most difficult, is ourselves. We cannot offer water to others from an empty well. We must learn to fill our own hearts first. We gently repeat a series of phrases, letting the intention behind them sink into our being. Phrases such as, "May I be happy, may I be healthy in body and mind, may I be safe from inner and outer harm, may I live with ease." We are not forcing a feeling, but planting the seeds of an intention. Once we have established a sense of warmth and kindness for ourselves, we bring to mind a benefactor or a dear friend, someone for whom it is very easy to feel love and appreciation. We hold their image in our mind and extend the same wishes to them. May you be happy, may you be healthy, may you be safe, may you live with ease. We allow the feeling of goodwill to flow naturally and freely towards this person, bathing them in our benevolent intention. The third stage is to bring to mind a neutral person. This might be a cashier at a store, a neighbor we see but don't really know, or someone we pass on our daily commute. We don't have strong feelings about this person one way or another. We now practice extending the exact same wishes of metta to them. This is a crucial step. It begins to stretch the muscle of our heart beyond the confines of personal preference. It is the beginning of universal, impartial love. The fourth stage is the great challenge and the great act of healing. We bring to mind a difficult person, someone with whom we have conflict or for whom we feel resentment or anger. The practice here is not to force ourselves to like this person or to condone any harmful actions they may have committed. The practice is for the sake of our own freedom. We recognize that holding on to anger is like holding a hot coal with the intent of throwing it at someone else. We are the one who gets burned. So, with as much sincerity as we can muster, we extend the phrases of metta to them. May you be happy. May you be free from suffering. In doing this, we are releasing the poison of hatred from our own heart. It is a profound act of self-love. Finally, we expand our awareness outward. We extend our feelings of loving kindness to all of the people in the previous categories at once. Then we radiate it out further to all beings in our city, in our country, in our world. We extend it to animals, to all creatures seen and unseen, in all directions, in all realms. We hold the intention, may all beings everywhere be happy, may all beings be safe, may all beings be free. In this final stage, the heart transcends all boundaries and becomes boundless, a pure, radiant source of unconditional goodwill for all that lives. The power of metta is not merely a gentle, sentimental feeling. It is a force, a palpable energy that can protect and transform. There is a famous story from the life of the Buddha that illustrates this. The Buddha's jealous cousin, Devadatta, plotted to kill him by getting a ferocious war elephant named Nalagiri drunk and setting it loose on the path where the Buddha was walking. As the enraged elephant charged, screaming and destroying everything in its path, the Buddha's disciples panicked and urged him to run. The Buddha, however, remained perfectly still and calm. He did not run, he did not fight, he did not use any psychic powers. He simply stood his ground and radiated an immense, powerful, and unwavering field of pure metta directly at the charging beast. The story says that as the elephant entered the field of the Buddha's loving kindness, it began to slow down. Its drunken rage subsided. Its eyes softened. It approached the Buddha, lowered its massive head, and knelt before him, completely tamed. This story shows that metta, when fully developed, is fearless. It is the ultimate protection, a shield that can pacify the fiercest of enemies, both inner and outer. We can bring this practice off the cushion and into every moment of our day. It becomes an inner attitude. When we are standing in a long line, we can silently offer metta to the stressed-out clerk. When another driver cuts us off in traffic, instead of reacting with anger, we can take a breath and wish for that person to be free from the agitation that causes them to drive so recklessly. When we listen to a friend, we can listen with a heart of metta, offering them the silent support of our unconditional positive regard. It becomes a secret, joyful practice that changes how we relate to everyone we meet. As we cultivate this wish for all beings to be happy, we inevitably encounter the reality that many beings are, in fact, not happy. We see suffering, we see pain, we see sorrow. When our heart, softened and opened by loving kindness, comes into contact with the reality of suffering, a new quality, a new resonance naturally arises. The wish for others to be happy transforms into the active, heartfelt wish for them to be free from their pain. This trembling of the heart in the face of suffering is the birth of the second sublime state. It is the awakening of karuna, or compassion. As our hearts learn to dwell in the boundless, benevolent warmth of metta, we inevitably encounter a profound and challenging truth. The world, for all its beauty and wonder, is also filled with pain. Our wish for all beings to be happy runs directly into the reality of their suffering. A heart that has been softened and opened by loving kindness cannot remain indifferent to this reality. When the unconditional wish for happiness meets the presence of pain, a new alchemy takes place. The heart quivers, not with fear, not with aversion, but with a deep, resonant empathy. This sacred trembling of the heart in the face of suffering is the birth of the second sublime state. It is the awakening of karuna, or compassion. Compassion, in the Buddhist understanding, is a far cry from the feelings of pity or charity that we often associate with the word. Pity looks down from above. It creates a distance between the observer and the sufferer. Oh, you poor thing, I am glad I am not in your position. It is a sentiment that subtly reinforces the ego's sense of separation and superiority. Compassion, on the other hand, meets the other on level ground. It is the recognition of our shared humanity, the understanding that your suffering is not separate from my suffering. It is the courage to feel with another, not just for them. Furthermore, compassion is not a passive state of sorrow. It is not the paralyzing overwhelm of empathic distress where we become so swamped by another's pain that we are rendered helpless. Karuna is an active, energized state. It is empathy married to wisdom and strength. It is the unshakable aspiration to do whatever is possible to alleviate or assuage the suffering that we witness. It is the heart's most powerful and skillful response to the existence of pain. The greatest obstacle to genuine compassion for others is often our inability to feel it for ourselves. We live in a culture that relentlessly demands perfection. From a young age, we are conditioned to believe that our worth is tied to our success, our appearance, our productivity. When we inevitably fall short of these impossible standards, when we make a mistake, when we fail, when we feel weak or broken, we turn on ourselves with a cruelty we would rarely direct at another human being. We become our own worst enemy, caught in a merciless inner monologue of criticism, shame, and self-recrimination. This inner critic is the antithesis of compassion. It is a voice of violence that keeps us trapped in a cycle of suffering. The practice of self-compassion is the radical and healing antidote to this inner warfare. It is not self-pity, nor is it self-indulgence or a way of making excuses for our behavior. Self-compassion is simply the act of extending the same kindness to ourselves that we would naturally offer to a dear friend who is struggling. It has three core components. The first is mindfulness, the ability to notice our own suffering without immediately being swept away by it or suppressing it. We acknowledge, this is a moment of pain. This is really hard right now. The second is a sense of common humanity, the recognition that failure, imperfection, and pain are not personal defects, but are part of the universal human experience. To be human is to be flawed. We are not alone in our struggles. The third component is self-kindness, responding to our own suffering with warmth, gentleness, and understanding, rather than with cold judgment. We learn to soothe and comfort ourselves, to be our own ally. This practice is not a sign of weakness. It is a source of profound emotional strength and resilience. It is only when we have learned to hold our own pain with a tender, non-judgmental awareness that we can truly develop the capacity to do the same for others. As our hearts become a safe space for our own imperfections, our ability to meet the suffering of others expands exponentially. The formal meditation practice for compassion mirrors the structure of metta. We bring to mind a being who is suffering, perhaps a friend, going through a difficult time, or even ourselves, and we hold them in our awareness. We allow our heart to connect with their pain, and then we offer them the sincere wish for its release. We silently repeat phrases such as, "May you be free from this suffering. May you be free from this pain and sorrow. May you find peace. May your heart be healed." We are not trying to magically take their pain away, but are cultivating the powerful inner state of wishing for their relief. This intention is a healing force in itself, both for them and for us. This inner state of compassion naturally seeks expression in the world through action. There is a magnificent and powerful image in Mahayana Buddhism that perfectly captures this active quality: the figure of Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva of compassion. Avalokiteshvara is often depicted with 1,000 arms, and in the palm of each hand is an open eye. This is not a monstrous image, but a profound metaphor. The 1,000 eyes represent the ability of a compassionate mind to see the suffering in all corners of the universe, to be aware of the myriad forms of pain that beings experience. And the 1,000 arms represent the boundless, skillful means that compassion employs to reach out and help. The hands are not held in prayer, they are open and active, ready to offer comfort, to protect, to guide, to heal. Compassion is not a feeling we keep to ourselves. It is a powerful motivation that moves us to act, to listen deeply to a friend in distress, to volunteer our time for a cause we believe in, to speak out against injustice, to perform a simple, unheralded act of kindness for a stranger. It is the strength that allows doctors and nurses to walk into hospitals every day, that fuels activists fighting for human rights, that empowers a parent to soothe a crying child in the middle of the night. It is the courageous, engaged, and wise response of a heart that refuses to shut down in the face of pain. Living in the modern world, we are bombarded with images and stories of suffering on a global scale. The news cycle delivers a constant stream of war, famine, disaster, and injustice. It is easy to become overwhelmed, to fall into a state of helpless despair, or to develop a protective callus of cynicism and indifference just to survive. Compassion offers a third way. It allows us to keep our hearts open without being destroyed. We can look at the suffering in the world, acknowledge it, and hold it with the intention, may these beings be free from their suffering. This may not change the external situation, but it changes us. It prevents our hearts from hardening. It keeps us connected to our shared humanity and fuels our resolve to contribute to the world in a positive way, however small. When a heart has been thoroughly bathed in the waters of loving kindness and compassion, it becomes a strong and spacious vessel. It is no longer easily shaken by the winds of hatred or despair. It develops a deep resilience, an unshakable core of peace. Having learned to wish for the happiness of all beings and to aspire for their freedom from suffering, this open heart is now prepared to encounter another aspect of the human experience, the joy and success of others. In a world that often conditions us to feel envy and comparison, how does a liberated heart respond to the good fortune of another? The answer lies in the third of the four sublime states, the joyful practice of mudita, or sympathetic joy. Having cultivated a heart of boundless goodwill and compassionate strength, we have built an inner refuge, a source of peace and well-being that does not depend on the outer world. This inner wealth stands in stark contrast to the primary message of our modern culture, a message so pervasive, so powerful, that it has become the default religion of our time. It is the gospel of materialism, the seductive and relentless promise that happiness, peace, and fulfillment are things that can be bought. It whispers to us from every screen, every billboard, every advertisement. It tells us that contentment is just one purchase away, that our feelings of emptiness can be filled by a new car, a bigger house, the latest phone, a more fashionable wardrobe. It is a belief system that equates our net worth with our self-worth, and it drives us to participate in a frantic, unending race for more. We now turn the lens of our practice onto this powerful force, to investigate the trap of more, and to discover the radical and liberating art of contentment. Psychologists have a modern term for the ancient Buddhist diagnosis of craving. They call it the hedonic treadmill. It is a perfect description of the cycle of dissatisfaction that defines so much of modern life. The cycle works like this. Our mind fixates on a desire for something external, believing that its acquisition will bring lasting happiness. Let us say it is a new, state-of-the-art television. We see advertisements for it, we read reviews, we imagine how wonderful it will look in our living room. A sense of lack, of dissatisfaction with our current, perfectly functional television begins to grow. This is dukkha. The craving, or tanha, becomes stronger. We work extra hours, we save our money, we finally make the purchase. For a brief period, there is a genuine spike of pleasure. We feel excited, satisfied, we have achieved our goal. But then, something insidious happens. We adapt. Within a few weeks, or perhaps even a few days, the new television is no longer new. It is just the television. It becomes the new baseline. The initial thrill is gone. The lasting happiness we were promised has failed to materialize. And so the mind, still seeking that permanent satisfaction, begins to scan the horizon for the next thing, perhaps a new sound system to go with the television, or a new piece of furniture. The treadmill starts up again. We are running, putting in immense effort, but our baseline level of happiness remains exactly the same. This is the great illusion of materialism. It is a game that is designed to be unwinnable, a thirst that can never be quenched by drinking salt water. The Buddhist path offers a radical way to step off this exhausting treadmill. It suggests that true wealth is not an external acquisition, but an internal quality. This is the practice of santuti, or contentment. Contentment is not to be confused with laziness, complacency, or passive resignation to a miserable fate. It is a deeply positive and joyful state of mind. It is the profound and peaceful recognition of enough. It is the ability to find joy, satisfaction, and sufficiency in what one already has, right here and now, without needing something more to complete the picture. The person who is endlessly accumulating possessions, driven by a constant sense of lack, is in reality living in a state of deep poverty. The person who has few possessions but feels a genuine sense of contentment in their heart is truly rich. Theirs is a wealth that cannot be stolen, that does not rust, and that does not depend on the fickle fortunes of the world. It is the secure and unshakable wealth of a peaceful mind. To cultivate this inner wealth, we must bring mindfulness to the very process of wanting and consuming. We can begin to draw a conscious distinction between our genuine needs and our conditioned wants. Our true needs are relatively simple: nutritious food, clean water, shelter from the elements, health care, and meaningful connection with others. Our wants, on the other hand, are infinite. They are manufactured by a culture designed to make us feel inadequate. The practice is to pause before we acquire something new and to ask ourselves with gentle honesty, am I seeking to fulfill a genuine need, or am I trying to soothe an inner feeling of boredom, loneliness, or insecurity? Am I acting from a place of wisdom, or am I being unconsciously driven by craving? This simple, mindful pause is an act of profound power. It is the moment we take our hand off the automatic pilot of consumerism and reclaim our own agency. It is not about asceticism or depriving ourselves of beauty and comfort, but about becoming conscious architects of our lives, choosing to invest our energy in things that bring true, lasting value rather than fleeting pleasure. There is a beautiful Zen story that captures the difference between these two ways of seeing the world. A wealthy and powerful merchant, proud of his vast estate and priceless treasures, invited a renowned sage to his home. He spent hours showing the sage his collection of rare jewels, his fine silks, his magnificent sculptures, boasting about how much each item had cost and the great lengths he had gone to acquire them. The sage listened patiently and politely. As evening fell, the merchant led the sage out onto a balcony overlooking the garden. In the clear night sky, a full moon was rising, casting a luminous silver light over everything. The sage was silent for a long time, looking at the moon. Then he turned to the merchant and said, "All of your treasures are indeed impressive. You can tell me their price, but can you tell me the price of this moon? You can lock your jewels in a safe, but can you lock up this moonlight?" In that moment, the merchant understood. His entire life had been dedicated to acquiring things that could be owned, possessed, and locked away. The sage was pointing to a different kind of richness, a richness that is vast, freely available to all, and utterly beyond possession. The beauty of the moon, the warmth of the sun, the sound of the birds, the feeling of love in one's heart, these are the true treasures. The path to happiness lies not in trying to possess the world, but in learning to appreciate it. This is the joyful secret discovered by those who step off the hedonic treadmill. They find that happiness was never at the destination they were running towards. It was available in every step of the journey. They find richness not in the quantity of their possessions, but in the quality of their attention. The simple act of savoring a cup of tea with full, undivided presence can bring more satisfaction than owning the most expensive tea set in the world. A deep, heartfelt conversation with a friend is more valuable than any form of entertainment money can buy. A walk in nature, feeling the earth beneath our feet and the air on our skin, connects us to a wealth that is boundless. When we cease our frantic search for happiness outside of ourselves, we discover that the peace we were seeking has been here all along, quietly waiting beneath the noise of our own striving. This relentless pressure for more is not limited to material possessions. In our culture, it extends to every facet of our lives. We are driven to accumulate more achievements, more status, more followers, more experiences, more productivity. This mindset, this belief that our value is determined by what we do and what we achieve, leads to a uniquely modern form of suffering. It leads us to push our bodies and minds beyond their limits, to sacrifice our well-being on the altar of success. It leads us directly into the heart of the weary, depleted state we have come to call burnout. And it is to this weary ghost of our modern world that we will now turn our compassionate attention. Our investigation into the cultural gospel of more has shown us the exhausting nature of materialism. But this insatiable craving extends beyond the things we own. It infects the very way we work and live. It manifests as an endless pursuit of more achievement, more productivity, more success, more validation. In this relentless race, we treat our own bodies and minds as resources to be exploited, pushing them past their limits in the service of an ever-receding finish line. The inevitable result of this unsustainable pace is a uniquely modern epidemic of suffering, a state of profound depletion that haunts our workplaces and our private lives. It is the weary ghost of burnout. It is more than just tiredness. It is a deep exhaustion of the spirit. It is a cynical detachment from work that was once meaningful. It is a loss of efficacy, a feeling that nothing we do matters. This is a profound form of dukkha, and it is the predictable consequence of a life spent chasing a future that never arrives, fueled by the mistaken belief that our worth is measured by our output. There is a simple and profound story that perfectly illustrates the mechanics of burnout. A traveler came across a woodcutter in a forest who was furiously sawing at a large tree. The woodcutter was sweating and straining, his whole body tense with effort, yet he seemed to be making very little progress. The traveler watched for a while and then approached him. "I can see you are working incredibly hard," the traveler said, "but your saw blade looks very dull. Why don't you stop for a little while to sharpen your axe?" The woodcutter, without pausing in his frantic sawing, replied with irritation, "I don't have time to sharpen my axe. I'm too busy cutting down this tree. This woodcutter is us. Our body and mind are our axe. In our desperate hurry to achieve, to produce, to cut down the great tree of our to-do list, we refuse to stop and sharpen the very instrument we are using. We tell ourselves we don't have time for rest, for silence, for practices that nourish our spirit. And so, our efforts become more and more strained, less and less effective, until eventually we are left exhausted with a dull axe and a tree that will not yield. Burnout is the state of continuously trying to cut with a dull blade. The path of wisdom shows us that sharpening the axe is not a luxury, nor is it a diversion from the work. It is an essential and non-negotiable part of the work itself. The first step in sharpening the axe is to completely redefine our understanding of rest. In our culture, rest is often seen as mere cessation from work, a collapse onto the couch at the end of a long day. We may stop working, but our minds keep racing. We turn to distractions, scrolling through our phones, binge-watching shows, consuming endless streams of information. While this may feel like a break, it is often just a different form of stimulation, a kind of mental junk food that fails to truly replenish us. True restorative rest is a mindful practice. It is an intentional act of stepping out of the stream, of doing and allowing ourselves to simply be. It can be as simple as stopping for 5 minutes between tasks, closing your eyes and doing nothing but feeling the sensation of your breath. It can be a slow, mindful walk, where the goal is not to get anywhere, but simply to feel the movement of your body. It can be the practice of noble silence, intentionally refraining from conversation and information intake for a period of time. It can be the act of savoring a cup of tea with your full attention without a screen in front of you. This kind of rest is not empty. It is deeply nourishing. It is in these moments of stillness that the mind settles, the nervous system regulates, and our inner well of energy is allowed to refill. Giving ourselves permission to take these moments is the most fundamental act of healing from burnout. The second crucial practice is building a fence around our garden. Burnout is very often the result of porous or non-existent boundaries. We allow the demands of the outside world to bleed into every corner of our lives, leaving no space for ourselves. The Buddhist teachings on right speech and right action provide us with the tools to build these protective fences. Right speech, in this context, is the art of saying no with kindness and clarity. It is learning to communicate our limits without guilt or aggression. It is the understanding that we cannot be all things to all people. Right action is the physical embodiment of these boundaries. It is the concrete act of closing the laptop at 6 o'clock and not opening it again until the morning. It is the choice to put our phone away during dinner with our family. It is the decision to protect our weekends as sacred time for rest and connection. Setting boundaries is not a selfish act. It is a vital practice of self-preservation and a wise recognition of our human limitations. A person who is burned out cannot be of true service to anyone. By protecting our own energy, we ensure that when we do engage with our work and with others, we can do so with a full and present heart. On a deeper level, healing from burnout involves a fundamental shift in our orientation to work itself. We must learn to move from a mode of frantic human doing to one of grounded human being. Our culture has taught us that our value lies in what we produce. The practice of mindfulness invites us into a different reality. It teaches us to bring a quality of presence and ease to the activity we are engaged in. When we are writing an email, we are simply present with the act of writing. We feel the sensation of our fingers on the keyboard. We notice the thoughts forming. We are not simultaneously worrying about the next 5 items on our to-do list. When we are in a meeting, we practice listening with our full attention rather than multitasking or thinking about what we will say next. This practice does not mean we work less hard, but it removes a huge layer of mental friction and inner conflict that is a primary fuel for burnout. We find a sense of peace within the effort rather than desperately hoping for peace after the effort is over. We learn to work from a place of centeredness rather than constantly striving towards it. The path out of the gray shadowlands of burnout is not a new productivity hack or a time management system. It is not about learning to cut down the tree faster. It is about learning to honor the woodcutter. It requires a profound reevaluation of our values, a gentle turning away from the cultural obsession with frantic doing, and a turning towards the quiet, healing wisdom of being. It is the compassionate practice of sharpening our axe through mindful rest, the courageous act of setting wise boundaries, and the liberating discovery of finding peace in the midst of our lives, not in some imaginary future beyond them. It is learning a new, more sustainable, and more compassionate relationship with our work, with our world, and most importantly, with ourselves. This deep work of mending our relationship with ourselves and our actions naturally leads us to consider the very fabric of existence itself, and how the illusion of our separateness lies at the heart of all our striving. Our journey inward has led us to some profound and challenging truths. We have seen through the frantic grasping of materialism and the exhausting race of modern burnout. We have tended to our hearts, cultivating a boundless goodwill and a courageous compassion. And in our deepest investigation yet, we have looked for a solid, separate self and found only a flowing, interconnected process. This insight into no self, or anatta, is the key that unlocks the next great door of wisdom. For if the self is not a separate, isolated entity, then it follows that nothing else is either. The sense of being a lonely subject moving through a world of separate, disconnected objects begins to crumble. We are now ready to expand the lens of our awareness from our own inner nature to the nature of reality itself, to explore the most profound and unifying vision of the Buddhist path, the illusion of a separate world. The core principle that illuminates this reality is known as paticca samuppada, or dependent origination. This may sound like a complex philosophical term, but its essence is beautifully simple and can be expressed in a single phrase. This is because that is. This is not because that is not. This arises because that arises. This ceases because that ceases. This is the universal law of conditionality. It states that nothing exists in isolation. Everything in the cosmos comes into being in dependence upon other factors. Nothing has a separate, independent existence. Everything is profoundly interconnected. To understand this in a tangible way, let us look at something as simple as a single sheet of paper in our hands. We look at the paper and we see a sheet of paper, but the practice of deep looking invites us to see what else is there. If we look deeply, we can see the sunshine that nourished the tree from which this paper was made. We can see the clouds and the rain that watered the tree. The sunshine and the rain are in this sheet of paper. If we take them out, the paper can no longer exist. If we continue to look, we see the logger who cut down the tree, and we see his parents and his breakfast that gave him the energy for his work. We see the factory worker who operated the paper mill, the truck driver who transported it, the store owner who sold it. All of them, their lives, their hopes, their actions, are present in this sheet of paper. If any single one of these non-paper elements were removed, this sheet of paper would not be here. So, the paper is not just paper. It is the sun, the rain, the forest, the logger, the factory, the entire web of life. Its existence is dependent on and interwoven with the entire cosmos. The Zen master, Thich Nhat Hanh, coined a beautiful word for this reality, interbeing. The paper inter is with everything else. And so it is with us. We look at ourselves and we think we see a separate, independent being. But if we look deeply, we see that we too are made entirely of non-self elements. We are the air we are breathing in this very moment. We are the food we ate this morning, which is the sun and the soil and the rain. We are the ideas, the language, and the culture we have inherited from countless generations of ancestors. We are the kindness of our parents, the patience of our teachers, the support of our friends. If we were to remove any of these non-US elements, the us that we think we are would cease to exist. Our very consciousness depends on the objects it perceives. The idea of a separate autonomous self is a powerful illusion, a trick of perception. In reality, we are a temporary manifestation of a vast, interconnected network of causes and conditions. This leads us to the heart of Mahayana Buddhist wisdom, the concept of shunyata, or emptiness. Like no self, emptiness is a term that is easily misunderstood as a bleak, nihilistic void. But its true meaning is the key to liberation. Emptiness does not mean nothingness. It means empty of a separate, independent, inherent existence. The sheet of paper is empty of a separate self. It is empty of being only a sheet of paper. But precisely because it is empty of a separate self, it is full of everything else. It is full of the sun, the clouds, the logger, the entire universe. Emptiness, therefore, is not a void. It is the very ground of connection. It is the openness, the potential, the radical relativity that allows everything to exist and interact. It is the space in which the dance of interbeing can unfold. To be empty is to be full of all things. There is a magnificent image from ancient Indian philosophy used to describe this vision of reality, Indra's net. Imagine a vast, cosmic net that stretches out infinitely in all directions. At every intersection of the net's threads, there is a single, perfectly clear, multifaceted jewel. The net is structured in such a way that if you look closely at any one jewel, you will see reflected in its polished surfaces every other jewel in the entire net. Not only that, but each of the jewels reflected in the first jewel also reflects all the other jewels, and so on, ad infinitum. Each jewel contains and is contained by every other jewel. This is the vision of emptiness and interbeing. Each one of us is like one of these jewels. Our existence is not separate, but is a reflection of all other existences. Every action, every word, every thought ripples out and is reflected in the entire net. What does it mean to live with this understanding? What are the practical implications of seeing the world not as a collection of separate things, but as a seamless, interconnected whole? The first and most immediate effect is that it is a profound antidote to the modern plague of loneliness and alienation. The feeling of being an isolated individual, struggling alone against a vast and indifferent world, is one of the deepest sources of our anxiety. The wisdom of interbeing shows us that this feeling is based on a false premise. We are never separate. We are intrinsically connected to all of life, held within a vast web of relationship. We are a part of the whole, and the whole is a part of us. This is a source of immense comfort and belonging. Secondly, this vision gives rise to a natural and effortless compassion. If the boundary between self and other is an illusion, then your suffering is my suffering. Harming another being, whether human or animal, is seen not just as an external act, but as a form of self-harm, a tearing of the very fabric of which we are both a part. Kindness and compassion are no longer moral duties to be performed. They become the most logical and sane response to the nature of reality. They arise spontaneously from a heart that understands its own profound connection to all that lives. Finally, the understanding of interbeing inspires a deep sense of meaning and responsibility. In a world of separate objects, our actions can feel small and insignificant. But in Indra's net, every action has cosmic significance. A simple act of kindness, a choice to consume less, a word of encouragement, these are not isolated events. They send ripples of influence throughout the entire net, reflected in all the jewels. Our lives matter profoundly because we are intrinsically part of the whole. We are not just passive observers. We are active co-creators of the world, moment by moment. To see the world through the lens of interbeing is to undergo a fundamental revolution in consciousness. It is to move from a life of separation, competition, and fear to a life of connection, cooperation, and love. It is the ultimate healing of our sense of alienation. We realize we are not strangers and sojourners in a foreign land. We are home, And this realization prepares us for the final stage of our journey, the art of taking all these profound insights, the path, the practice, the wisdom, the open heart, and weaving them together into a beautiful and coherent way of life. It is the practice of bringing the monastery home. We have journeyed to the furthest frontiers of the mind, exploring the profound and liberating truths of impermanence, no self, and the seamless, interconnected nature of all existence. We have stood in the heart of Indra's net and glimpsed a reality where every one of us is a shining jewel, reflecting and being reflected by all others. This vision is vast, beautiful, and deeply healing. It is a glimpse of ultimate truth, and yet we must now face the most practical question of the entire spiritual path. What happens on Monday morning? What happens when the quiet moment of contemplation is over and we are faced with a traffic jam, a difficult email, a crying child, or the relentless pressure of a deadline? How do we carry the peace of the monastery into the chaos of the marketplace? The final stage of our journey is not about seeking new heights of insight, but about learning to bring that insight down to earth. It is the art of integration, the practice of weaving these profound truths into the very fabric of our ordinary, everyday lives. It is the art of bringing the monastery home. The first and most radical shift in this practice is the understanding that our daily life is not an obstacle to our awakening, but the very field in which it happens. We often fall into the trap of splitting our lives in two. There is our spiritual life, the time we spend meditating, reading, or in quiet reflection. And then there is our real life, the messy, complicated world of work, family, and responsibilities. We see one as a peaceful refuge and the other as a stressful burden. The practice of integration dissolves this false dichotomy. The world becomes our monastery. The difficult colleague who pushes our buttons becomes our most patient teacher of right speech and compassion. The frustrating traffic jam becomes our advanced seminar in letting go of control. The unexpected illness becomes a direct teaching on impermanence. The demands of our family become the ground for practicing generosity and selfless love. When we adopt this view, everything changes. Life is no longer a series of interruptions to our spiritual practice. Life is the spiritual practice. There is no separation. To live this way, we learn to skillfully weave together the three great trainings of the path: wisdom, ethical conduct, and mental discipline, so that they become a single, seamless garment. Imagine a master weaver at a loom. They have three bundles of thread. One is the thread of wisdom, or panya. This is the understanding of interbeing, of impermanence, of no self. It is the why of our practice. It is the deep perspective we hold, the understanding that informs our view of every situation. The second bundle is the thread of ethical conduct, or sila. This is our commitment to right speech, right action, and right livelihood. It is the what of our practice, the concrete ethical choices we make, the vow of harmlessness that guides our behavior in the world. The third bundle is the thread of mental discipline, or samadhi. This is our training in right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. It is the how of our practice, the moment-to-moment awareness, the focused attention, the resilient energy we bring to every task. A life of wisdom alone can become abstract and disconnected. A life of ethics alone can become rigid and moralistic. A life of meditation alone can become self-absorbed. But when the weaver skillfully intertwines these three threads, the result is a fabric that is both beautiful and incredibly strong. It is the fabric of an integrated, awakened life, a life where our deepest understanding, our daily actions, and our state of mind are all in perfect harmony. When we live from this place of integrated wisdom and compassion, our personal journey of healing naturally expands to include a response to the suffering of the world around us. This is the heart of what the Zen master, Thich Nhat Hanh, called engaged Buddhism. It is the recognition that enlightenment is not a private affair. It is the understanding that true peace cannot be found by retreating from the world's problems, but by engaging with them from a place of clarity and love. Our mindfulness practice is not just for our own stress reduction. It is to give us the clarity to see the roots of social injustice. Our compassion practice is not just a warm feeling. It is the fuel that motivates us to act on behalf of those who are oppressed, marginalized, or suffering. Our insight into inner being is not just a lovely idea. It is the direct realization that the planet's health is our health, that another's poverty diminishes our own humanity, that another's freedom is inseparable from our own. Engaged Buddhism means our inner peace is not an escape from the world, but a resource for it. We become spiritual activists, working for peace in the world by first cultivating it within ourselves, and then allowing that peace to inform our every action, from how we vote, to what we buy, to how we treat the earth. This may all sound like a grand and noble endeavor, and it is, but the art of living it comes down to a practice that is profoundly simple and portable. In the midst of the most complex or overwhelming situations, the practice is to come back to the immediate, undeniable reality of the present moment. It is the practice of just this. When the mind is lost in a storm of worry about the future and regret about the past, we gently bring it back to just this breath. When we are feeling overwhelmed by a mountain of work, we bring our full attention to just this one task in front of us. When we are having a difficult conversation, we practice listening to just this one sentence being spoken. This practice of just this is the ultimate tool for integration. It cuts through the paralyzing complexity of our mental stories and anchors us in the simple, sacred reality of the now. Washing a single cup, taking a single step, speaking a single kind word when done with our full, undivided presence, these simple acts become expressions of our deepest wisdom. They are the monastery, here and now. They are the art of living. So, we learn to live a life of dynamic balance. We are like the great soaring bird that has two wings. One wing is wisdom, the deep, silent, inner understanding of the nature of reality. The other wing is compassion, the active, engaged expression of that wisdom in the world. A bird cannot fly with only one wing. To be whole, to be free, we must cultivate both. We need our times of quiet solitude to look deeply and recharge our spirit, and we need our times of active engagement to offer our gifts and practice our love. This is the great dance of the spiritual life, the dance between stillness and action, between being and doing, between the silence of the monastery within and the vibrant, challenging, beautiful marketplace of the world. We do not seek to stop the dance of life, with all its joys and its sorrows. We simply learn, with ever-increasing grace, wisdom, and love, how to move with it. We have now explored the path in its entirety. We have the map, we have the tools, we have the vision. The journey ahead is simply our life itself. And so, our long walk together comes to a gentle close. We began with a familiar image, a reflection of our modern world, a woman named Anna, sitting in a car, trapped in a river of steel and glass, while a storm of notifications and anxieties raged within her. That feeling of being stuck, of running endlessly on a wheel that leads nowhere, was our starting point. It was the honest acknowledgement of our shared dis-ease, our dukkha. From that place of raw honesty, we began our journey inward. We traced the unseen river of suffering to its source, not in the world outside, but in our own minds. We learned to dance with the shadows of impermanence, to see that the very nature of life is change, and that our fight against this flow is the cause of our exhaustion. We looked for the solid, unchanging me we work so hard to protect, only to find the ghost in the machine, the beautiful, selfless tapestry of anatta. We were given the physician's diagnosis in the Four Noble Truths, and a clear, practical map for the journey home in the Noble Eightfold Path. We sat in the quiet laboratory of our own mind, learning to watch our breath, befriending the silence through meditation. We cultivated a heart strong enough to be soft, learning to offer the light of loving kindness and the balm of compassion, first to ourselves and then to all beings. We felt the profound relief of letting go, of unburdening our hearts from old grievances and future fears. We saw that our words are seeds, that our actions have echoes, and that our true home, the only place where life is actually happening, is in the vibrant stillness of the present moment. We learned that after all this searching, the path leads us back to where we always were, to chopping the wood and carrying the water, but with a heart that is awake and a mind that is at peace. If there is one single truth to carry with you from this journey, let it be this: peace is not a destination. It is not a prize to be won after years of effort. It is not hiding in the next job, the perfect relationship, or a future moment of perfect tranquility. Peace is your original nature. It is the quiet, unwavering sky of awareness that was always there, patiently waiting behind the clouds of our thinking, behind the storms of our emotion. The spiritual path is not a journey of becoming something new. It is a journey of remembering what you have been all along. It is a path of return. You do not need to wait for a special time or place to begin. The tools are now yours. The understanding resides within you. The invitation is always open in every single moment. Feel the ground beneath your feet. Notice the air as it enters your lungs. Listen to the sounds of the room around you. This is it. This is the practice. Be patient with yourself. Be kind to your own heart. The search for peace is not a race. The search itself, when done with mindfulness and compassion, is the very peace you have been seeking. The journey is the arrival.